Right. Greetings, one and all. Greetings, Brother Feather Dragon. I apologize for the delay yesterday and a little bit uh, on today, but we're going to go hard in the paint. Just want to thank everyone for their patience and tuning in. Uh, Gonna go into a lot of details on a few things as, as soon as Dr. Gabrielle Union finishes with her grits. We go in the paint. I know she's over there probably with all her windows open. Let's see. Let's see if I can grab her right quick. So y'all just bear with me one moment. Yeah, while we're doing that, I want to give a shout out to a few people that have been staying on task and putting in work. Uh, Brother Turtle Gang up there in the tri-state area been putting in the work. He's had a lot of guest stars. He had the chief from the Taino, the Boricuas, and was hitting on some information that I hope you all. I think it was not yesterday, but the day before. Check out that live stream. He had, like I said, a few chiefs on there. Definitely a great build that he had over there. So check out uh, Brother Turtle Gang. Also, if y'all haven't, I'll tell y'all right now. Rico Indios, Rico Suave, it's good to be back. Uh, it's also, if y'all had a chance, check out Ohio Player Roller Coaster. Check out Ohio Players channel. He got some deep stuff over there. If y'all really want to check out Ohio Players stuff, if y'all hadn't been sleeping on Ohio Players, stop sleeping on him. Tell him he got some stuff over there. And I'm gonna say shout out, and people gonna say, "What? What is he talking about?" I want to give a special shout out. There he is. Speaking of, there you go. Brother Ohio Player, he's been dropping some knowledge on his channel, so y'all need to go check out his channel. Go check out Ohio Player. I'm telling you, you won't be sorry if you do, but you'll be sorry if you don't. I tell you that right now. He be dropping those jewels in on his channel, so y'all need to go check out his channel. Also, I'm gonna give a shout out to somebody. They probably gonna be like, "What?" I like to give a shout out to Copper Interest Holbert. I like to dub her the cussing Creole. She been coming and bringing a whole lot of stuff. In case y'all hadn't been checking her out, I'm glad that she has stood firm on being an American Indian, and she's bringing some info that folk may want to go and check out. That's all I'm gonna say. She's been bringing the heat on Sunday evening, so y'all may want to go check out Sister Copper Empress Hobart, aka the Cussing Creole, because she dropping some jewels, man. Brother Kerry Bay is in his house. Man, it's a whole lot of stuff, like I said, been going on in your area, Brother Kerry Bay. I'm glad that you are all right. Like I said, I know a couple of days ago that tornado came through, it touched down in this area a little bit, but then that storm passed through here and kind of hit up that New Orleans area. So I'm glad that you okay and spoke everybody get back to some sense of normalcy here. See, this whole time since Gabrielle Union talking about, "Oh, I'm ready," and she nowhere to be found. See what she's doing up in here. Yeah, man, it's gonna get pretty interesting up in here in a little bit. And folks say that it wasn't this people and not those people, and no, they didn't do this and they didn't do that. And so yeah, we're just gonna talk a little bit about who these people are specifically. Again, when you're talking about who you are specifically, it makes all the difference in the world. Things begin to make sense when you put it all together and understand. You know what that cousin Creole, man. She gonna bring some information. She gonna cuss, but she gonna bring you some information. Y'all just have to put all the the women and children to bed. But I'm telling you, she dropping some jewels, man. She dropping some jewels, and people, it's time for folks start waking up, man. But yeah, we've been talking about knowing what time it is, and these and you you always have people that'll come in the middle of a movie or of a series that you've been watching from the beginning, and they'll try to spin and put their own narrative on things, and you got to start looking and saying why they want to put their own spin and narratives on things. But then as you start to see a little bit more, and folks start showing you who they are, then you have to start you know, doing an assessment and reassessing some things and compartmentalizing some things and saying, okay, well, I see what they're trying to do. And I was a 200-meter runner back in my day. And they would always see over the intercom, they say, watch your lane. So I'm fine. They can stay in their lane, they can stay in the outside lanes and get hit in the head with a bag of popcorn as they coming down that home straight if they want to. But yeah, I'm gonna stay right here in the middle lane where I am, and mind my business and stay in my lane. As long as they stay in their lane, they good. But we're gonna talk about not everybody, but a few people on the dark side have been talking about. Um, they certain people they say who didn't build the pyramids. They know for a fact that these people didn't build the pyramids, but they can't tell you who did. But they can tell you they always can tell you who didn't. So I'm gonna bring you with who did, and I'm gonna bring you who they are, and then I'm gonna take you on a little journey. And for those that are in the back chat, I'm gonna drop a few nuggets for you, and I'll be posting some videos later on tonight as well to go along with that, so you can hear from the people from the land themselves, and they'll tell you, you know, themselves who these people were and who they are, and kind of like here on my beef that they walking around with amnesia, they master builders and don't know who they are. And that's why the people that are in the land, and that's why I advise anyone: if you take a boat, take a cruise. In fact, you really don't even have to leave if you're in the lower 48, you don't even have to leave the 48 states, 48 areas to get this information because you'll find it everywhere, all over, all these nuggets. And like I say again, link up with these universities and colleges because you can establish a free account into their library and you can get this information for free that a lot of folks are paying hundreds of thousands of dollars to get access to this information, and you can get it for free. So they're here. And it was more nuggets that's at the University of Tulane in Louisiana. Like I say, these universities have this information. I'll say the University of Pennsylvania, Tulane University, LSU, um, Princeton, Harvard. These places have this information. University of Texas in Austin. I was there. Well, shoot, on multiple occasions for a long stint there over the summer. So that's what I've been doing is gathering some information too, because they have a lot of replicas of the Olmec heads, but then they actually have information pertaining to who we are. And when I went into the museum and spoke to the curator there outside of the LBJ library, you'd be surprised. Like I said, when you walk in to these places and you know who they are and they know who you are and you know who you are, the answers will start to shine. So, like I said, again, I'm not gonna be here long. I know we gotta do several series. and I'm gonna break some things down. And uh, but we are gonna delve into later on who some of these people were and who they are and where they're supposed to be. So my goal is to make sure to help people get back on the path of where they need to be. And at the same token, I am expecting the same for anybody else to help me to be where I need to be. But I wanted, like I said, to delve back into the Natchez. And like I say, I'll put several different names that you'll see. They keep trying to give all these different names, kind of sounding the same and different spellings, but you realize that these are the same people and how they ended up with it. Where I kind of left off, I was talking about the division of what happened when we started fighting ourselves. And when I say specifically, when you had the Uli that came back up into what we know as the southern states or the Mississippi Maya or the Chautauquate, all these different names that you'll find that is us is what we called ourselves and what others surrounding neighbors also called us. So I'll just say the Mississippi Maya or the Uli, the Alabama, to be more specific for those out there because someone's going to say, "Oh, you don't know what you're talking about." So I'm dropping these nuggets. So don't have to take my word for it. You'll be able to see it for yourself. So when we returned back to after the last cataclysmic flood, because there was one, I know people are saying, oh, it wasn't just flooding, it was um, a terrestrial body hit this planet. And all the ancient sayings, readings are saying the same thing. May say it a little differently, but it's all saying to lead you to the same point. But it gets back to these timekeepers of doing this series of the timekeepers, and it's going to all fit in later on in a few episodes to come, and you'll see what I'm talking about. The timekeepers that you'll have those that know what time it is, and then there are always people that's asking what time it is. And if you're on a mission, you'll understand that things are time sensitive. But if you're just lollygagging around and want to waste people's time, you notice that when you're on a mission, you notice that's when people want to start interfering with you and distracting you and want to take away your time. And time is the one thing that cannot be redeemed. You will lose time. You cannot regain that time. So I wanted to discuss what happened that you will have when I mentioned before about the red stick and get into the red stick wars, and they try to tell you it's all these different people. It's the Creek, the Seminole, and well, these all the people are all related because if you notice, they'll always go back and tell them Muskogee, and we talked about that before. Muskogee, Mississippi, Michigan, all these same people, same folk, same folk. So don't let them fool you. It's different branches, but the same folk. So the red stick, we know about the red stick and the red stick wars. We don't talk about the other side or the white sticks. Now, the white sticks had their leadership, their elders, their wise ones as well. So the red sticks were primarily those that affiliated themselves with the Chickasaw. And the white sticks were the primarily the ones that would affiliate themselves with Choctaw. So red sticks, Chickasaw, white sticks, Choctaw. You very rarely hear about the white sticks, if you have at all. But you would definitely hear about the red sticks. Now, when the division took place was when they came back up after the Great Flood, the last Great Flood, because there were several, but the last one, and the waters receded enough for them to come back. And they were planting their sticks in the ground. And if whatever direction the stick fell, they say that's the great spirit told them to go in that direction. But when they finally got to a settling point and they put their sticks in the ground, the red sticks and the white sticks put their sticks in the ground. The red stick The white sticks, which is the Choctaw, and I was using the Choctaw, and those who they were allied with, said, "This is where the Great Spirit is telling us to stay." And the Chickasaw were saying, the Red Sticks were saying, "No, this is not where we need to settle. We need to keep going." So that's where they divided eventually, and then over time, like I say, that the wars broke out between family members. It happened. So, but I was going to get to just to get to that point to show how Chickasaw settled in one area, Choctaw settled in another area, and through that division before the wars had started, the Natchez went with the Chickasaw, and this is where you'll start to see the divide or the division that takes place with the Chickasaw and the Choctaw, and the Natchez actually settling in with the Chickasaw. But prior to that, like I said, the Natchez, they would go out through several tribes, even up to the with the Algonquian tribes. Um, and so going out, like I said, with the creeks and the gullahs, and they were building these fortified places. Now, throughout this, I'm going to drop several links and I'll put them in the back chat so people can see for themselves. And all these people, right, from all different sects, you'll have French explorers, you'll have friars keeping their notes, you have Jesuits keeping their notes, you'll have Spanish, you have the Portuguese, you have the various tribes are telling you the Natchez were the ones that were the fortified builders. They were building these forts, and all the European did. Like I said, and people get try to. I was in. I don't know who this guy is, but on another thing they were talking about the Garifuna, and I was explaining to them like, hey, it's not what you think. These Spanish wouldn't these Portuguese and Spanish wasn't coming over here like that. Because remember, guns were not as available until later. What really got us in the jam that we were in, one was dealing with their writing system and using their currency that we didn't use because we used the bartering system outside. Like I said, we did have several things that we used, like cacao, which is your chocolate. We did use that for currency. We use copper for currency. But when they switched the currency to their currency, then you have nothing to go with. And like I said, on paper, you had all these European nations, like for example, Spain and France were at war battling over land on paper, and we got used as proxy. Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Flint Rock, as well. Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Ohio player, roller coaster. Yo, let me leave out that Flint Rock and Jade was definitely used along with and we'll talk about that a little later too once we start getting into going back to the roots and talking about the etymology of words that it was certain red mineral that was used as well. Oh, brother Copper India is all up in here. That's the grudge. I tell you, pop out of nowhere. I tell you, y'all better get right with brother Copper Indios in his house. So, hold on. Let me do something here. Did I not put that back? I don't think I put that back in there. If I didn't, I sincerely apologize. Um, Let me do something right quick. I thought that I had put that link in there, right there. Hold on, let me do this too. Let's see. What can I do here? This way. It'll let me. All right. I don't want anybody to be scared up in this camp. So I'll put that link out there. And just wanted to like I said, to mention about how not only who was who, but how do we get to you know where we are. So I want to just read a little snippet here and talking about uh and I'll be kind of going back and forth in time, but it's still dealing with the same people, so we can get to where we need to be. So that it talks about the Spanish Franciscan friars in 1716 that they talk about the Natchez, spelled a little differently, Neche, still Natchez, still the same people, that the mission was temporarily abandoned in 1719 due to the fears of French attacks. But they tell you that it was the Natchez that built the fort. I keep telling you, the Natchez that built the fort. And I don't think some people get that or understand that. And they still keep coming, talking about who didn't. I had put this in, oh, I'm gonna get that a little bit later. I had put that in the back chat before. I just did a photo, but sometimes the picture's worth 1,000 words, but a video is worth 10 million. And it says that when the but due to fears of the Spanish attacks, but when the Spanish returned in 1721, they presented the Natchez chief with a baston or a token of authority, and they provided clothing for 188 Natchez men, women, and children. And in 1730, the mission was closed. So every time when you see these missions, like it'll say mission whatever, and then it's forts this, but it's mission that, because they'll come and the friars would come and rename this. So this is a mission, but it was actually a fortified place. These forts, you find that a lot, especially in San Antonio, as you continue to go south. There are places all over. It's like, oh, this is mission such and such, mission this and mission that. It's a fort. Don't let the smooth taste fool you. It was a fortified place, and then they turned it into Fort whatever, Fort Riley, Fort Smith, Arkansas, all these other places you start seeing around here. All these different forts were fortified places already built by the Natchez. That's why I gave the example when you get into the Civil War that Fort Sumter was never overtaken by Union soldiers. They kept banging and banging and banging and blasting with cannons, and the walls never failed. Why? Because the Natchez had already established a relationship with the Gullah Geechee. And I don't even want to get into that because folk had a fit a couple of years ago. And I'll tell you, the Gullah Geechee, and they saying they claim to be African, so they get their reparation money. And not realizing, you find out about the Gullah Geechee, and they tell you that it was more Indians, hmm, more Indians that were being deported out of that area, and then more of Carib, which also Indians, your Arawak, Tainos, Caribs, Garifuna, that were brought in to the Carolinas. Then there were Africans coming in. Why? Because you're going to keep finding out in the early days, these Africans were Portuguese and Spanish, and they wasn't. When I mean Spanish, I mean the so-called AKA Moors. They were not coming over. That's why you see again these African establishments in those areas, and they were Africans coming in. They were Portuguese on the title of Portuguese, but they were Africans coming in, and they wasn't coming in being sold into slavery. They were coming over here, and they would stay, and they would, whether it was 7, 10, or 21 years, enough to pay for their voyage, and then whoever kingdom they were under, whether they were under Portuguese rule, which ended up being further south, when you get into South America, or whether they were under Spanish rule, which you get into what we call the southeastern part of the United States, and getting into what's now Mexico and Guatemala, which was, and then British Honduras, but before that, Guatemala, Ecuador, Costa Rica, um, Panama, all in that area. Oh, you back now, brother Kerry Bay? Outstanding. So, hold on. I'm sorry. I got guests in here, and man, I didn't even. Man, what am I doing?
Hey, brother James. Hey, everybody.
Greetings, brother Copper. I apologize about that, man. I was popping my gums and didn't realize, man, y'all had been waiting in the chat. Like I said, greetings, brother Copper. Greetings, brother President Dragon. I'll yield the mic to y'all, man. I appreciate y'all coming on.
Oh no, you on the roll. Actually have something to add to the Portuguese thing once you're done with that thought.
Oh, yes, sir. Yes, sir. Most definitely. Uh, brother Feather Dragon, are you there, brother? Oh no, I'm sorry. That's Ohio player. Roller coaster. Ohio player, you in the house, man? I'm sorry. I think he's muted. Yeah, I was just, I guess, and and with the Portuguese, that's where it gets back to where everyone's talking about those 20 and odd Negras, and they keep mentioning about, oh yeah, this gotta be, and this is where it begins. Like, no, you have to understand something. They were coming over here, working the land, and having children with American Indian women. And this is where it started getting established, because now they're saying, wait a minute, they already couldn't. Sometimes, outside folk couldn't tell one from the other, they one from another. Whether, hey, are these Portuguese or these Spanish? And I'm using their country that they're from, and not necessarily who they are. So that way, because people will just say, oh, they're all Moors. No, you
Especially
can't
if
do that to people that were already here before those that call themselves Moors even existed. So when people try to claim like, oh, they were all Moors, they were all, no, 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 no. Because here's the deal: you can't, you can't. It's like me coming to you, brother Copper, Indio, and I'm saying, you know what? I'm an Indio now. I ain't get nobody tell me I'm this, because we all this, and your family should knock me into next week, saying, wait a minute, who are you? You coming in and trying to take over, and you have absolutely nothing to do with this. So when they try to label, oh, these were all Moors, and the Moors did this, and the Moors did that. You can't, you can't, you can't put somebody in a box like that for people that were already here. It discredits those that were already here and the things that they contributed thousands of years ago, long before anybody was talking about Moor and Mauritania that came and all the rest of that. But they were coming, and they were establishing these places and having children. And the Portuguese even admitted that's why they didn't have as many conflicts as the Spaniards did, as the Dutch did, as the French did, and later on as those Brits did, because they said, wait a minute, we're just gonna start having babies with them. We love it over here. The women look nice, they pretty, and they smell nice. And we're not going. And you'll read that a lot, especially when with the Spanish explorers and the conquistadors. They were saying, we're not going back. We are not going. We're staying right here. And at the beginning, they keep falling off when it comes to. There were a lot of ships that crashed and burned on the shores, and the people were here, and those that met them on the shores were bringing them into the fold, allowing them to marry into their family, taking care of them. And on the flip side, some of them were writing when they finally got the ships, and other ships were coming writing back to my, oh, they're cannibals. They were saying that our people were cannibals because they didn't want anybody else to come over here because they were being treated so well. And in a couple of episodes, we're gonna talk about two that actually uh, that they were saying they were cannibals, but yet why did you want to stay over here if you're in a land full of cannibals? If you're saying that everybody else that was shipwrecked over here, that the Indians, the American Indians took them and ate them and made you slaves. But then when they said the Spanish was like, we're here to rescue you, and they said, nope, we're not going back. So we're gonna talk about that. But I wanted to I wanted to I'm born here, shout out to I'm born here, but I wanted to yield the mic to Brother Cop Indio. That was just my thoughts right there. We're talking about those Portuguese to get people a little better understanding on who was coming over here. Nobody was coming over here talking about 200, 300 strong on these ships, coming over in slaves and shackles and all the rest of that. And I'm gonna put that myth to bed too. Like I say, there were slaves that came over here later on that were in bondage, forced to come over here. But from the jump, because people go 1492 and then they jump all the way to what started happening in really the early 1800s. It's a big change from what happened in a big. It was a power shift that took place. So this window that they keep talking about, all these slaves, African slaves came over here, is smaller than what most of us think when we actually start putting it on a timeline. So, Brother Cop Indio, I'm gonna yield the mic to you, man, because I always look forward to speaking with you, brother.
I appreciate it, and that breakdown was amazing. Let's look at a couple things that Brother James touched on here because I got a couple notes to add. Exhibit A. Now, when we talk about Portuguese Angola, see, one of the things that you get told, especially when they talk about the 1619, slavery started then, and we all Angolans and so forth. That nonsense comes from the Portuguese that were intercepted by the British down the street from where I live in Jamestown. Now, when you look at Portuguese Angola, that was an empire that was created there by the Portuguese. Now, there was nothing there. There was no empire there. So what you have to ask yourself, why? Was there nothing there and the Portuguese wouldn't establish something? Because there weren't a lot of people there. A lot of people that were living in the area were what we would now call Congo, right? So they migrated down from Europe. They migrated south into West Africa, and that was one of the main hubs because they found that it was easier to get to Brazil from that area, from these areas that they now tell you that the so-called African American came from. Well, these were not only empire establishments that they set up, but these were trading ports, and so they were moving not only cargo, not only goods, but they were moving people back and forth. And so you'll find a lot of the Indians from Brazil, from the east coast of Brazil, you will find a lot of those same people, those same customs in West Africa. So let's not be confused. So they want us to think that we started over there as opposed to starting over here and being brought over there. That's Exhibit A. Exhibit B is when these people came here to this end, that because the Portuguese, that's what a smoking gun is. The Portuguese had two classifications for people that they saw when they left out and went to explore. In Africa, they referred to those people as Negros da Guinea. So the Guinea, you know how in Roots, when Kunta Kinte goes there to the plantation, they call him the Guinea man. Look, y'all, it's a Guinea man. Guinea. Anything having to do with Guinea that they were referring to like that, that was what the Portuguese were talking about, that was going back and forth between Brazil and West Africa. That was the terminology they were using for that. But they also had a terminology that they were using for the people that were here, negros da terra. Okay? The Negroes of the land that were here. They knew about Africa. They were trying to figure out this place and what all was here. Again, when they tell you they were discovering America, discovery, you got to think about a discovery in terms of like legal jargon. That's a legal term. When you go to court and you have discovery, we lay out the evidence. We survey the land and see what's here, what can be taken, what can be used. Remember, this was all a business deal from the Catholic Church with the monarchs of Europe. And you had the Spanish and the Portuguese make their way here first. Then you have the Dutch and the English later on. And so the smoking gun, like I said, is the way they refer to the Indians here as negros. That's smoking gun. Also, like Brother James said, you have one of the things that the French got hip to watching the Portuguese and how they dealt with us was intermarriage. They realized they would get a lot less smoke from us if they intermarried with the female, because it was all men coming. These weren't women coming here initially. These were men coming here. Some of them were Africans, some were legitimate Africans, some of them were Portuguese and Spanish, but they were men coming here. These were explorers. They weren't families coming here. And so, like Brother James said, when these people came here and realized they had everything that they would ever need, they didn't want to leave. And there's a long history, and at some point, I would really like to break some of this stuff down. This for a later discussion, but there's a long history of the peoples of Europe taking iconography and taking cultural things from us, and they still do it today, and they use that as their depiction of monsters. You can see it now, even now in modern horror films. And see, I'm a child of the 80s. I was born in 1980. And I grew up on stuff like Poltergeist and, movies like horror movies like that. Those was all, the rage back then in the 80s. But what was the deal with those movies? They were buried, they were built, these were places that were built on Indian burials that were cursed. They always make us monsters. You can go and look in some of the books in the 16th and 17th century on demonology. This is after they start coming here. And you look at the way these monsters look, and then you go back and look at these old etches. I talked to Ohio Play about this one time, about how they take the birds and the feathers and all of the animal pelts that we had. They would use those images, and they use those etchings. And some of the Renaissance and Baroque artists would depict demons like that, with boar heads and bird heads and things like that. They made us into the demons and devils. They have always done this.
Yeah, even in the movies, that's why they always, target our communities with those. If you want to call them like, your superhero movies, your bad guys are always remind you of us.
Yep, it's always us. It's always us. We're always the bad guys. We're always the monsters.
I mean, that was what they was calling it when they didn't want anybody to come over here.
And that's the thing. Even now today, I work with a global group of people. I mean, talking about people that live and work and are from all parts of the world. And a lot of it's funny because while I work with a lot of these guys, I ask them about what they know about America. And most of them don't really know much outside of World War II and modern history after that, or you can consider that postmodern history. But A lot of them have no idea what went on here before the 1940s and 50s. They're deliberately not told. And if they are told things about this place, it's usually pretty negative. How Americans are fat and lazy and we don't do anything we should be doing until we don't have a choice and things like that. And so,
hip hop.
right.
Yeah, they gonna take it back
So,
to rap.
see, a lot of people, especially in East Asia, they see our people, especially as a caricature, as stuff they see in music videos, and so they start to, they don't necessarily assume, but they kind of start wondering if most of our people are what they see on TV and in music videos and things like that. And that's deliberate because there's a group of people that are invading from around the world, from every country on the planet that are coming here, whether it's from leaving warfare, whether it's to have a better quality of life, to have opportunity. But you also have people that are here deliberately giving the world an image of us that has them, even as they come here, to not want to do business with us. You ever gone to like a corner store or gas station and you got somebody that's not from here, but they're looking at you like, hurry up and buy something and get out of this place. I don't want to deal with you. I want your money, but I don't want to deal with you. A lot of these people are told this before they come here. They're told not to deal with us unless they can make some money off of us. There's an old documentary back in the 50s. I forget exactly what it was called, but it was something to the effect of how to sell to the Negro. That's it. That's it. That's the rule book. That's the rule book on everybody that's come here since they've been coming here. That's the American dream. It's got nothing to do with us. It has everything to do with people coming here and making money off of us. And that's what we see now.
James used to say, how they set down their whole system right on top of it. They already
Yep.
knew we had all the purchasing power. We made all the money. We make the world move. So, why
Yeah.
not just make a system around them rather than try to get rid of them? But
exactly. And I got into a little bit of a debate. I won't say an argument, but more of a debate. I try not to argue with people because it's silly on the internet. But I got into a little bit of a debate with some guys that were talking about America and about the idea of slavery. It had to do with this new slavery movie that I think starring Will Smith is coming out, and this fella, this is a pale fella, and he was saying that well, Native Americans enslaved each other, so you can't blame us for putting people in slavery. I'm like, well, yeah, you had people that enslaved each other, but you also had people that were doing that to save their relatives from slavery, and to people that were threatened with slavery if they didn't fight their cousins, didn't fight the people that were down the road from them, right? So they try to make it like, oh, well, you all did this to yourselves. And yeah, there's some culpability that some of our people have with the situation that we're in. But at the same time, let's call it what it is. Let's not be naive to the fact that a lot of this was manipulated. And see, they always absolve themselves of swindling people out of their land and colluding with one group to put another group into slavery so that they can be free a little longer.
Yeah.
Some of my relatives, just real quick, some of my relatives come from an area near Bennett's Creek. Those were Chowanok villages, and those people were on one of the first reservations in this country. And there was Mr. Harold and Mr. Lewis, and this is where the town of Lewiston, North Carolina, is named after.
I knew it was the Carolinas.
Yep. Now they moved those people once they bought all the land out from under them, the reservation land, and this was their payment for fighting against the Tuscaroras there in that area in Lewiston. So they got herded into a reservation the same way that the Tuscarora did, and then they got moved. Hang on a second. Hang on 1 second. I'll be right back in a moment.
All right. So yeah, just like he was saying, my family, we would be one of the, like James said, there's a lot of apologies that's supposed to go around. In my family, we would be one of them families. We were Indian and what you want to call, Choctaw, and my South Carolina roots would be Cheraw and the PDs. And we did a lot of dirty moves. We did a lot of business moves on both sides of the fence. Uh, the people here talking about that ran down and created what is South Carolina and pushed all the unwantables into the South was the regulators. That was one of my great uncles who was riding around with a group they called the regulators in South Carolina. And they got all the rowdy tribes and everybody down up near would that be Charleston, and started getting everybody out of the port. So everybody's hands ain't clean, especially not my family. Then after that, after we started getting our ass kicked in South Carolina, some of the family got up and left with all their riches and walked all the way through Creek territory, all the way through Alabama, all the way into Mississippi, which is Jackson, Mississippi. And basically my family started there and started making plantations and mingling with the Choctaws and Chief Pushman Tata. And we basically brought the my family helped the French get on down into that territory without my family's help. A lot of these problems, I feel like, well, maybe, I can't say it's all my family's fault, but, I feel like some of those problems probably would have never been there had we not gone. But, it's a lot of stuff in history that you have to come to terms with. And, everybody out here can't, deny the fact that this system has your hands in it too.
Yeah, it does, and that's part of why when I talk to some of these other people that don't really understand our story and what's going on, what has gone on with us, I tell them, hey, no, we had a part in this. This wouldn't have happened unless some of us were actively working against the rest of us, and that absolutely is the case. So there's a plenty of blame to go around with everybody. Just real quick, and I appreciate that, man. Just real quick, the people the Chowanok people that were moved to Lewiston in North Carolina. And check this out. This is another smoking gun here. Their land was sold out from under them from a man named Samuel Harrell. Now, when I looked at my family tree, the Harrell family is intermarried with my family. So you can guess what happened when they moved some of those Chowanok Indians over there and mixed them in with the Tuscaroras in Lewiston, the ones that stayed, that is. And they stayed there in Lewiston, Kelford, and what's called later called Roxabelle. It used to be called Cotton Crossroads, but they renamed it to Roxabelle. That's where my fourth great grandmother is from. She's buried in Harrell Cemetery. They intermarried with our people. Now those people were never slaves. But check this out. What they did was they took all the women and said all the women were mulattoes.
Yeah.
They took the men and said the men were Negroes and that the mulatto women had married Negroes. The reason why they did that is because Samuel Harrell and his partner, Mr. Lewis, decided that they were going to circumvent having to go to the Continental Congress through the what later became the War Department, right? Which later became the Bureau of Indian Affairs. Because whenever you bought or took in Indian land, you had to go through them. You had to go through Congress. Them changing us to Negroes and mulattoes absolved them from having to pay us fairly for the land. And also, we could never go back and claim the land because we were no longer Indians. Now, my fourth great grandmother on the census there in Lewiston is the whole family now is there is listed there as mulattoes. The whole family, even mama, my fifth great grandmother, all listed as mulattoes, and that was because they were moved there. That family was moved there. The women were moved there in the 1780s from the Chowanok villages that were there on the reservation, and they were no longer Indians. They were mulattoes and Negroes, so they could never reclaim the land. That is the point. And that's one of the biggest smoking guns I ever found in any of the research I've done about what's going on with us and why they're so insistent that we be from somewhere else. I'll yield the mic on that one.
Yes, sir. You were spot on. I appreciate you brothers add too, because it goes right into to today's live on how on paper when we had to make decisions, like you said, to stay out of being enslaved a little bit longer, the decisions that those before us made, and we have to reconcile those differences. And seeing on there the mulatto, like I said, I'm seeing all the way. The same thing that you got, brother Copper, was mulatto. Went from Indian to some mulatto, Negro. Now these are siblings, not like people married in. These are siblings that you'll see later on as they're grown and they have their own kids, and then later on, when they did the voter registrar, I'll talk about that a little bit later. But going to voter registration in 1869 here in the Great Republic of Texas, that it had my third great grandfather listed as white, and he don't wear near white. Now, how you go from you don't go from Indian, then the folks coming on down the line is mulatto, then you saying Negro, and then you turn around and he's white, and then the very next census, the very next year in 1870, now he's a Negro. How you turn all this within a short time frame that we never pay attention to on the surface. We just take, oh man, well they wrote this in, and we as a people have to realize something. There was a time in this country, in this land, that it was illegal for us to read their books and their writings. So it's real easy for someone to write you out of history if you're not able to read their language. So when those things start going on, you start seeing the allies, the ones that call themselves allies, and matching up, and things begin to make sense. Like for example, even with he jumped off. I wish he was still on here. That Brother Ohio Player was saying about it, it's folks and how they came down and settled in Jackson was the same thing. That when the division came between the Chickasaw and Choctaw, the Choctaw, my people, we sided with the French, which is why still to this day, in the majority of your land that was Choctaw territory, they have the French names, French establishments, because of what my people helped them establish, going along dealing with the fur trade. You getting into the port of Orleans down there, the brother Carrie Bay's way, all along Mississippi. And so even when you see these Indian territories that are still named after the Indians, I'll give an example of Washita. Washita is spelled the way the French was spelled Washita. So we sided with them. The Chickasaw sided with the British. The Natchez went along with the Chickasaw. And so now here you go. So these wars and stuff, these battles that were going on here were Indian tribes fighting each other via proxy, representing whatever nation or corporation that we affiliated ourselves with. And nothing has changed to this day. So whether you want to be Autobots, Decepticons, and then you come about, we are from the same source. But we fighting each other, and there's somebody sitting up there moving the chess pieces, laughing at what we're doing and decisions that we're making based upon how they're manipulating us to manipulate one another, to think that we're getting back on top. Sorry about that. I don't know why. I apologize for that. Sasha, I don't know why it was. Oh, you're in the back. Let me get you back. Sorry about that. Yeah, let me get you back on in here. All right, there you go, brother Ohio
All
player.
right.
All right, you back on, brother? Make sure you
Yeah,
get you
yeah, I'm
good
back
over
in
there.
there. Can y'all hear me?
Yes, sir.
Yep.
Yes, sir.
Loud and
Loud and
clear.
clear.
Cool.
Yeah. In case, like I say, I get on my soapbox, man. Just hey, I'm in the back, and I'll get you back in there. Uh, just talk about how manipulating one another and all of these various like I say fortified places
I
because
always
when
say
we
it's the French,
actually
man. The French, like you said, when you turn around and you look and you wonder where the money and who's moving all the chess pieces, but seem like they ain't never there. It's the French. It's the French.
yes sir
They,
yes
Yep.
sir those
Mm-hmm.
Frank those Huguenots that
yeah, the
nobody wants
Huguenots.
that
Yeah,
we keep leaving out of history and we saying, well, who this mysterious people? Nah, you call them what they are. They were the Huguenots, and they came over here, and you'll see all of their little establishments.
yeah.
No matter where
They'll
you go, like I said,
change. They'll
yes,
change their
sir,
name. They'll call themselves Welsh. Like you'll see them. They'll call themselves Welsh over here. They'll mix in with the Scottish over here. They'll wherever the business, wherever the money's going, they're there. And they're mixing in with the Indians. They're mixing in with the chiefs. They're doing business with their Jewish cousins, that they're hiding the fact that they're Jewish, and that they're Moors. So they're doing business with these people, and you thinking they're not related, but the whole time it's their plan.
yes, sir. Those same folk that slide in, and you'll find out when you start getting into to Mexico, you'll find out that these were these checks that were coming over here. I always said before, you listening to to the end of Mexican songs, and you play polka right beside it, play that polka music. These the same folk. It's the
Yep.
same folk, man. They just don't blend it in. It's the same folk. And so once you start realizing who's who and what's what, and like Brother Copper was saying about dealing with these Portuguese and the games that folk keep playing, they can say, oh yeah, well, they were coming over here and bring. I'm like, no, these were Portuguese ships that the British and the Dutch were intercepting and bringing them over here. But their mission was to come over here because they're like, oh man, this is the new land. This is the land of milk and honey. It's flowing. We need to get over here. They started intercepting those ships. And this was the battle that was going on that we don't realize in the Atlantic. So if all this fighting is going on, right, the French are battling with the Spaniards, the Portuguese are battling with the Dutch and the British. When you have time to get these hundreds of people just boatloads of people just shipping them over here like that. And then
Yeah.
simultaneously, you still have the intra uh, Atlantic or Caribbean slave trade going on. When you taking Indians from the mainland, taking them to the Caribbean to get them seasoned, and then you shipping them into the Yucatan and into Mexico and into South America. And then they say, oh, well, they Indians, but no, but you see in the log. That's why I keep trying to share with people. I'm like, look at these logs. They're keeping they're keeping tabs. They kept tabs on who was from where in order to know what type of crops to how to till the land. You're not going to bring someone over here that you're barely surviving yourself as a European. You're barely surviving as yourself. So you're going to bring somebody else over here, and you're going to pay for somebody to come over here to do something that they don't know how to do, and you definitely don't know how to do.
And,
That's
and I
not
can't
good
talk
business
to you.
practices.
You gotta think about that. How hard is it gonna be to teach somebody to grow something and we can't talk to each other?
Yes, sir.
That's
That's not smart business. That's not
that's
that's
not
not smart business at all. That's not smart
Yeah.
business. And one day, and I'm glad, but copy, you said something, and I'm gonna get back to the Natchez. But
All right.
you said something, and when we talk about those tupi, man, we're gonna talk about that, and we're gonna deal with that, and we're gonna find out. Like we mentioned it before
and I got
about
a
a year or so ago.
I got
All right.
what you want to call this, a page out of the William and Mary Quarterly to go with that. Whenever they would take the Brazilians back over there to Portugal and Castile, you know, how they basically would enslave them. Because, you know, I think it is Charles. It might have been Charles. He had basically freed all the Indians and over there. And the way that they kept them, they was like, prove you don't have West African blood. Prove you're not a Moro or Morisco, and we'll let you go. And I always tell a person how if we look so much different, how was it so easy for them just to pull that simple rule? Like, if you don't got no paperwork on yourself to prove that you're not West African, we're gonna keep you.
Yep. See, that's the game they play with us because they look and again, what's in the name? When they came over here and started using the same terminology for us because they likened some of our features to Ethiopians. Ethiopians are in East Africa. That's not West Africa, right? But Ethiopians and Egyptians were East African, Northeast Africans. But they had in their writings, these people look like Ethiopians.
But
right?
you always gotta, you know, when you hit the bottom of Ethiopia and you start getting to the ones that look like, the ones in the Sudan, just like in over there
Yep.
in Egypt. Egypt is the same way. India, like the Untouchables. You get towards
Yep.
the southern India, there's people down there with afros, thick lips. You would be surprised that they weren't West African. Like it would throw
Right.
you for a loop because all we ever get to see is your modern Hindu or your Persian. You know.
Yeah, and when you start moving people back and forth for wages, and because all we talk about slaves, and a lot of this documentation refers to people as slaves, but some of these people were um, working on projects. Some of these people were they were apprentices.
Yeah, you don't own
Apprenticeship was a
nothing.
big deal.
Yeah, because you don't own nothing. And, that's an employee, and there was no word for employee besides them, besides like you said, indenture or a slave.
Right.
You had to work for
Right.
somebody if you didn't own no land.
Yep. And when you start moving people back and forth, you stop really caring where these people are from. Because if you got somebody that's moving, what they used to call a coolie, in Hindi, coolie means a wage. So if you would take people from India, so let's say southern India, like Pune or somewhere like that, like southwest India, and you would ship them to like the Philippines, or you would ship them to, to the West Indies. You ship them there. These people that are moving them back and forth are not concerned where they came from, especially if they bounce in between islands. You end up having people in Barbados, and this I always tell people because when I was in high school, we used to watch the what was it, the Salem witch trials, a little miniseries they did on the Salem witch trial. And they always talk about how Tituba was an African slave. Why they call her that? They call her an African slave because she got sold in Massachusetts from Barbados. What they don't tell you though is what was she doing before it. Always ask this question, whether it's in your head or whether you're speaking to somebody. What was happening before these people were taken as slaves? So Tituba was from South America. Her village was burned down. How many people know that? You can go to Wikipedia and find it. Like, they don't even hide it. But they teach us in school she was an African slave. The same way as like we were talking the other day, Brother James, about Crispus Attucks. We were taught that he was a black slave because he was moving back and forth along the East Coast. Well, who was this man? The
Brother
newspaper that
Slocum. It's a good brother Slocum.
right. And when you look at what the same newspaper that announced that he had been shot by the British in the skirmish said that he was a Nantic Indian, and that he yelled at those people the same way that the Nantic Indians would. He spoke Nantic, and he made a sound like the Indians do when he attacked the British, when he charged the British. So it's like, well, wait a minute. Well, why are we told that these are African slaves when in reality, half of these people aren't even slaves to begin with, and they definitely ain't from Africa? But that's the quick and easy way to explain away things they either don't know or don't want to admit.
Yeah, because he had took an apprenticeship on a ship, right, or something. and he was supposed
Yep.
to be given, his wages and leave, and the guy didn't want to pay him and let him leave, so he just ran off. And
Yep.
from the point on, you're a fugitive slave.
And he was trading. He was trading down in North Carolina too. Ironically enough, a lot of stuff went on in North Carolina that I think rippled in implication for the rest of the country.
Oh, y'all stepping deep. Y'all stepping deep today. Brother Cop, you don't let the cat out the bag. That 2P there. That's why they go realize you got to deal with the 2P people or the 2B people, because that P and that B is interchangeable. Down there in Brazil, you gotta have that you gotta still have the who are these people, and they still down there, and they tell you who they are, and they tell you what started happening and how they was shipping people out of Brazil going up into that area, and how she ended up in there. And again, that same tactic that the British were using of burning stuff down. When you go in and start burning, then it's like, okay, now I have nowhere to live. And when they got back to, all she was doing was practicing what her mother taught her, whose mother taught her, and so on and so on and so on. And like, oh, you dipping in witchcraft. And now you got chicken soup. You got the book, the bestsellers on, oh, these are home remedies. That's all she was doing.
Yep.
Is living off the land. And they try to say, oh, she's a witch. And she was teaching these European women how to survive off the land because they were dying. That's what I think. I don't think people realize. Like I said, I'll go back again, and I will keep saying, they go George Washington, Abraham Lincoln, and they live out all those years. They go Christopher Columbus, and then we get into 1865. 1865, we go to 1965, and we jump all over. And like, wait a minute, it was a whole lot of stuff that happened in between. Y'all, wait a minute, we missing some stuff here. And not understanding where she came from and her people and breaking it down. Man, like I said, we got to say that for another bill, man, because that right there, when people start realizing about how they were bringing people from South America to North America and bringing them up.
You got the 2B, they were being called Negroes. You got the Pequots, they was being called cannibal Negroes. You got the Yamasee being called cannibal Negroes. The Caribs, and I can't remember the other tribe. I think it's the Siboney. They was on the islands being called cannibals. Anybody that didn't want to get down with Christianity, the easiest way to make you a slave, outside of you not accepting religion, because most Indians just went on and accepted the religion. So if you wanted to fight back or anything, the next best bet to get you into slavery or calling it a just war was to call you a cannibal.
That's right.
Yes, sir.
Because you were at that point, you were a danger to society.
Yes, sir.
Sound off like today, don't it? You're a danger to society, so we can keep you locked up.
Yeah.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. We're gonna continue to keep you suppressed because we're gonna make laws. We're gonna take away rights and make laws to make sure, because only these laws apply to certain groups of people, and you keep saying it over and over and over. And you can't say that we the people. Wait a minute, who's the we? Because when they are creating statutes, ordinances, and rules, regulations, and laws that specifically want to suppress a particular group of people, and when you don't know who you are and you getting boxed around like Glass Joe on Mike Tyson's Punch Out, you trying to figure out what the world I need to turn to. You see what I'm saying? If you don't have that cheat code on that, I should go to 7-Eleven all the time, man. Convenience store. I spent too many quarters on Mike Tyson Punch Out.
I hated that game, man. I hated it.
Boy, you get to Mike Tyson to get knocked, slap out, man, in 30 seconds or less. 2 punches and you gone. And that's the way they are doing us now. And I'll give you an example. Like I said, I was gonna say it for later, let the cat out the bag. That it was my people, the Tutu people, that in the Yucatan was the first major group or tribe of people to fold into Christianity. Man, there are all through the ranks of my family. There are so many Baptist pastors all throughout my family, because we were the first ones to fall in the Yucatan, and then it just spread, just came on up. So when everybody else, if you look at how the Spanish conquistadors took over that area, it wasn't from the east to west, it was from west to east.
Yeah.
They hit my people first, Rabbit Clan first down there, and they said up Christianity, and everyone else said, well, if the Tutu are giving themselves up to Christianity, then we might as well too. And then they allowed us to keep some of our customs. For one, when people look at my channel and they see a cross and they think it's a Christian cross, but it's actually not. It's a Mayan cross.
Yeah.
It's not a Christian cross. And dealing with the hills from the land that we are from, the highlands in that area, that's another subject for another time.
For your
But
life.
it's just what we have to realize is, like I said, it's getting back. First thing is going to happen. We cannot do it individually. If anyone thinks, because they will put people, and I'm not going to name celebrity names because that's going to get me in trouble. Somebody go back and listen and say, "Oh, we're doing it," but they will put certain individual celebrities in front of our faces to say, "Oh, you guys have made it. What are you complaining about? Why are you still doing this? Why are you still talking like this?" But until we as a people decide, hey, because some people will say that all the time, like, hey, my people wasn't there. We didn't do that to you guys. It wasn't my people. I wasn't even born yet.
Yep.
But we understanding of being spiritual beings that it's like the physical attributes that are passed down from generation to generation. There are also spiritual things that are passed down from generation. Because I'll give you an example. Have you ever seen, like, everyone on here has children for the most part that I know of. You may have seen your grandmother, but your children never saw your grandmother or your grandfather or your great uncle. And you will look at them and you will swear up and down, that's them, just in a little person. They start acting like them. It's like, wait a minute. That's how my big mama used to act. You know what I'm saying? When you see your little daughter doing stuff, like, wait a minute, that's Big Mama all over again. That's Uncle George all over again. So we can't sit here and say, well, I wasn't here. That was my people that did the Chickasaw wrong. That was my people that did the Natchez wrong. That was my people that did the Creeks wrong. Well, wait a minute. If I can't romanticize, because people do that when they woke up there in Harlem, do that. They romanticize certain things and not realizing the conflict and the wars that we created with each other. We got to fix it. And that's the only way to fix it. We can't sit up there and just say, oh, I wasn't there. Like I said, if I come down and I would never do this, but Brother Ohio player, I'll come and burn your house down, right? Yeah. And you and your family have nowhere to live. It's 60 years later. My family is doing well. Your family is still trying to recoup off losing everything. And then they say, oh, that's my grandpappy that did that to y'all people. Come on, son. We can no longer be that way. We can't do it. We can't move like that. So when we start finding out, the more we start, digging deep and finding out, we gotta say, wait a minute. This is what went wrong. Because it's like an illness or a cancer or a fungus. You gotta get to the source. They'll go in and start cutting off body parts, and they're like, "Oh, the cancer spread to here, to here, to." You got to. Where's the source? We can't keep ignoring what we've done in the past. And I say we because we have to take onus. Like if we could take onus for our greatness, we got to take onus for our shortcomings. We got to take onus for our faults and things that we've done too. Yeah. In order to make it right.
And that's how I always feel about some of my Sioux brothers, and that's where we always end up having to split with them. They know, a lot of them know their history, and they know that there was a slight problem between the Muskogee and the Sioux, because of what the Westos did, and that we ended up getting, back at them with the Seminoles. So, there's been a little infighting, between families, if you want to call it that, for a long time now. And now that they are, if you want to say, even though they're not doing that well on the reservation, at least they got to keep, some customs and tribal ways. and a lot of them, hold that against a lot of people from the southern Indians that were destroyed, and the tribes that no longer exist. They'll hold that against you. And that's something like I always feel like has to stop. And I see it in the community everywhere. You'll see everybody going at it. Who's who, and you kind of see the split, and I see where the split is happening. It's those two sets of the same family fighting against each other, and that we really didn't, you know, have that little problem, we would get so much further. We get so much further.
Absolutely. And you can look into the past and see the present and the future. I'll give you another example. Hernando de Soto made his way from La Florida all the way out to the Mississippi River, a little bit west of the Mississippi River. And the way he was able to invade and conquer so many people was they came in there with shock and awe. They came in there with I want to say Italian mastiffs. They came in there with really big, really muscular dogs. They came in there with
Pit
pigs,
bulls, the
pit
Spanish
bull.
alarm.
Yep,
Yeah,
they came in there. They came in there shock and awe. But see, what they did was, whenever they realized that they had a large group of people, a large tribe that was really powerful, that had a lot of warriors, De Soto would say, "I'm the son. I am the son of the sun," and he would try to coax the chief of that area out to meet him, and they would sabotage him and kill the chief off. They would try to kill the tribal leadership off, and then essentially spread everybody out, take what they wanted, and take whoever they wanted as slaves, and keep it moving. Well, he met his match at Kikualtam, near the Mississippi River.
that big Tuscaloosa.
Uh-huh. He came out there and said, and told Kikualtam, he said, "I am the son of the sun." Kikualtam said, "Well, if you're the son of the sun, then you won't have a problem thinning out and drying up the great river, the Mississippi, if you are the son of the sun. But I set foot to meet no man. If you come here for peace, then I will welcome you with open arms. But if you come here for war, we'll see you." He wasn't ready for that.
Man,
He was not ready for that. And De Soto ended up getting sick and dying not too long after that. But he was embarrassed because Kikualtam called his bluff. And that's the thing. When De Soto went through with his men and they would ravage a village, people from neighboring villages that had maybe had a beef with them or with that tribe or whatever would come through, same way we do today, come through. They would sit there and watch them get slaughtered, come through and take what they wanted. They would pilfer what they wanted and go on about their business. We do the same thing today. Like I said, you can look into the past and see the present and the future in those same things, in these same stories. But it all ends, like Brother James said, it all ends when we take a stand and we stop. We get together and we say, "No, you're not gonna come in like you came in over there and like you done before. This gonna end now." And that's what Kikualtam did, and that's what stopped Hernando de Soto from pushing further west.
man,
Brother, you are spot on. I keep telling when you know I'm greetings, Brother Turtle Gang. I'm glad, like I said, I'll put the link back in there if you want to hear. Now, Sister Gabrielle Union finally show up after cooking all them grits. I know she done picked about 7 pots of grits over there, and now you want to show up. I hope you just didn't. I hope you're not the one that came late. I hope you're the one that brought some food up in here, some hot pockets or something. but those are the same. Like I say, the same way to stop DeSoto. It is ironic, right down the street from me, there's a little town, city called DeSoto, named in his honor. But that's another subject for another time. But when you come in and start asking those questions, as we always talk about, dealing with your granny, when you have somebody come over, friend come over, little lady friend come over, little boyfriend come over for the lady, and they start asking who your folk are. Who are your folk? And it gets back to this one word. Now I'm gonna give you some for those in dealing with legal terminology. One word that's going to describe what they are doing, and this is where this comes from, because it ties you back to the land. Estate. Look up the original definition for estate. When someone passes away, and you got a list of people, and they got all this stuff, and the will, and it says it goes to the estate, and someone's a trustee or a caregiver of the estate, or it goes to probate court and deals with the estate of whoever that's what it gets back to. Your granny, your folk are trying to establish who is this other person's estate. See, we letting people come in, and we start bringing folk in to our estate, and they start, and you see the movies all the time where you got the wicked stepmother that comes in, that marries the kid's daddy, and then the daddy dies, and then she's got the estate, but she didn't mean him any good, nor the kids, and want to send them off to boarding school and all that stuff. And nothing has changed. You got folk coming in, so when your granny is saying, "Yo, we gotta hold up," just like DeSoto got checked. If you calling yourself, because again, studying our customs, our ways, our traditions, and come in, I'm the son of the sun. Well, people will take that at face value and be like, "Oh, he says that's who he is." So just like I told you about, people always talk, I'll come in, peace, 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 peace. And the next thing you know, on a live stream, all HW hockey sticks is broke loose. You're like, man, I thought you said you came in peace. We got to figure it out. The game has not changed. Only the players.
That's right. That's right.
We got to figure that out. So when they start coming and saying, yo, we're not, this is something wrong here. Then why can't, if you are this, then why can't you dry up the great Mississippi? Why can't you dry up this great river, this great body of water? Why can't you dry it up then? And since you can't, you're a fraud, because people didn't bother to ask. They just let them blend in. You're like, when you go, and I know you know this, Brother Copper, when you go have to go all over the world to conferences and stuff, they either have a name plate made for you that you got to stick on, or they give you that little hello thing and you got to or they write your name on the little sticker and put it on you to know that you belong there. You can't just wander in and start grabbing a plate and like, oh, they're serving breakfast, and you just grabbing plates and you sitting down and you wandering off and everybody else's business and stuff. You don't grab you a packet of whatever conference is going. You can't do that.
Can't do that.
You got to be. Are you registered?
You got to be credentialed, and you got to identify yourself, and that's the thing.
Like your family reunion T-shirt.
Yes, sir.
You got to be credentialed and identified, and that's the thing. See, we let people come in and with no credentials, with no identification. They just come in and saying, "I'm this." I mean, how is that any different than Alexander going to Egypt and saying? How's that any different from Alexander going to Egypt and saying to the Pharaoh, "I'm the son of the Pharaoh that died. So I'm your king now." Like, how is that any different from any of these invaders coming in?
That was the same way Cortez did it too. He
exactly
showed back up with Malinche, and she had told him the whole game, and he showed back up like he was Cuckoo Khan, and everybody ended up fighting over, is this him or is this not him? He said he'd be back, didn't he? And
Yep. The same as DeSoto saying the son of the sun. See, they look at the things that we have in our iconography, in our temples, in our spiritual writings. They look for things,
and they know we'll fight over religion at the drop of a hat. We'll fight over what we believe at the drop of a hat.
That's right. And like when you even now when you drive around in Bertie County, North Carolina, you can find a whole bunch of missionary Baptist churches. Where did those missionary Baptist churches come from, and why were they started? They were started there to take all the tribes that was in that area, okay, all the clans that was subdivided through that area. Like case in point, there's a near Rockwee Swamp. Okay, Rockwee means a turtle in Scotland and the Tuscarora language. That's where my grandmama went to church. That she been going to that church since the mid 40s. Until she moved out of the state. But that church was actually established in the 1880s but that was to hurt everybody that was still in that area to make sure that they went along with the program, and because the church wasn't just where you went for spiritual worship, that was a school too. So you sent your children there to be taught, so that they would go and play along with the people that lived there. And you also had spiritual worship where the pastor would tell you essentially how to go along to get along with everybody. They use these things, these aspects of our life and our culture and our religion, and they use them against us, because they would say, well, that deity that you used to worship is actually this, or worship me because, again, I'm the son of the sun. I am Christeke Jesus. Like I am this. I'm the son. So worship me. And then we end up having our people be led astray because they think they confused. They think they're following what they've always followed, but they're going to these people that haven't been credentialed, that have no proof of who they are, and those same people are the ones telling us who we are and who we aren't.
Yeah, they showed up with that Hebrew Israelite, a story way back then. Hey, you're the lost tribes. You should come over here. Let me read this book to you so you can find your
Yep.
place in the book, and then we're gonna go from here. And now you sitting here taking your spiritual guidance from somebody you don't even know, and this wasn't even y'all. Just like the same way they like Chara was Sarah, and then it went to it was Suala. It had all these names for it, but the Portuguese came there, and they had been there so long that it made it easier for everybody else to come in underneath religious guides. Just funneling them in. And like you said, South Carolina is so many Baptist churches. Like you will never, all the tribes is in the churches. Like if you could find your parish in South Carolina, you could basically find your tribe. Like if your family's connected to some type of parish like St. David, I can't remember the other ones. I have to look them up, but you gotta just keep on doing your research. Like don't get away from your genealogy either. You gotta make sure we stay on top of that because a lot of people losing their way. Worried about everything else but that. You gotta reconnect with your family.
And that's the most important thing. Sorry.
No, you good. That's exactly what I was gonna say. That's the most important part of all of this. So you'll see what role your family played. And when you mention those, like I said, those especially those missionary Baptist churches, they had the documents. They had the documents because when or if our people weren't counted on the census, you'll find those baptism and those christening records in those churches and tell you. Matter of fact, I had a great aunt who, when it was time for her to retire, because she never worked like a real job. She always, worked with other people, and they would just pay her cash or whatever. But when it came for her to retire to get her Social Security, they said, "Oh no, you don't even exist." So I took her up there and said, "What do you mean I don't exist? I'm standing right here in front of you." She didn't have a birth certificate.
My
So
great grandmother used to do that too. She tried to
we
come to
had to go
Germany.
to the Missionary Baptist Church. It was called the Second Baptist at that time. It was called First, the First Colored Church, to get her baptismal record, and they accepted that to say that she even existed. But she had had her driver's license and all this without all the information. They wouldn't take her driver's like, no, you don't exist. As far as Social Security is concerned, you don't exist.
Yeah, my great grandmother had the same thing happen. She tried to come to Germany with us, and when we got to the airport, to do everything, they're like, she don't get she is or to get her passport. They're like, she's like, I don't have a birth certificate. I was born at home, and they was like,
Mm-hmm.
you can't leave
Yep.
America. They basically told her like, you got to stay here. You can't leave. Like we had to go, like you said, get a family Bible and something from the church to prove what year she was born and everything, to get her a late registered birth certificate.
Yes, sir.
And she was like
Yes, sir.
75. Like she was like,
I still have all that information because my great grandmother had one of those big Bibles that one was always sit on the coffee table, and the other one
yeah,
she had in the room, and I have both of them, and it had all the dates. of all the people, they all their birthdays, and that when they were, Christian or baptized in the church. But the older folks, I can't. There's no information. They'll show up on the census, but as far as their birth certificate, because they didn't have one, so that's why they kept the record. So that's why I advise people go back to these churches, and you're gonna find out. And if your people start ended up like I say south of what we call in the on the south side of the Gulf of Mexico, start looking in these Catholic churches, and then like I say in these missions. There's a reason why these churches called missionary. They would tell you they were on a mission, but when they had to come back in, they were coming back into the missions, the forts that were being built. And I see Brother No Sellout, like I said, he's up in this camp. Talk about your people, Brother No Sellout. Those Natchez that folk get mad about. But they were coming back into those missions because, again, a mission, your churches, were your schools, like you said earlier, your schools, your place of refuge. It had to be protected from the enemies, and a place of edification because you need to be fed. Those were the things
and
that
you owe
that
them taxes. The church came to get them taxes.
yes, sir, yes, sir. You got to pay your portion. You got to pay those membership dues.
Yeah,
That's what God is. Those membership dues, but they have those established churches that are still there. They have those records. You have a right to go in there and ask them. Don't bust in the door on doing their worship service now, because you're not gonna get anything done. They go escort you out, and nowadays you probably gonna get shot by armed security. Just go in there, especially if they got a full-time pastor, or just set up with the secretary. I would like to, the window of time to meet with the pastor and sit down and have a conversation. Now, if he's new or she's new, they may not know, but they'll call in one of those elders. They'll call in one of those elder deacons in there, and they'll start telling your story to help you find out who you are. And all I advise anybody, I tell folks this all the time: set down that tape recorder or your phone, ask them, can you record? Because they're gonna say, oh, they don't want to be on video, and just let them talk.
Yeah,
just let them talk, and they're gonna give you that. They're gonna give you that information. They're gonna sit down and start talking to you about what's happening, and then you're gonna say, wait a minute, I didn't know this, I didn't know that. And before you know it, you start putting all the pieces together, and you start finding out why certain family members aren't talking to other family members.
Yep.
And then it's time, like I say, about that reconciliation. As I had to tell my own father, I said, Dad, I love you, but I wasn't born then. All I know is that I have cousins out there that I only see every now and then, enough to identify them to know that they're my cousin. But I don't know why we don't talk to them. So if the people were long gone before you were born, and you're well older than me, it's time to reconcile, because the people that had the beef, that had the differences, are no longer here. So I said it's for us, for our children, to know their children, and reconcile and getting back together. That's the reason why, like I say, sometimes you have to go your separate ways, and that's fine for a time and a season, maybe even for generations. But then coming back together. I know But No Sellout is driving, and I don't want you to get up there to that DMV area, and I hope you're not going into DC, man. Hope you staying on that southern sector. Don't get up there in DC. It's a little hectic because folk are all upset about that January 6th committee. So don't go wrong. Anybody in DC, you better talk about fortified areas. You better fortify your house, and put up. I got some wood and stuff, the plywood for hurricanes. I'll ship it up there to you. Don't go outside because so folks are mad.
Man.
So don't go up there. We ride up in DC. You stay on that. You stay on the southern end. Stay on that Southern Virginia, North Carolina border. That's where you need to be, brother. No sellout if you're on the road. Don't try to go north. You stay in that southern sector there, because we got love for you, brother. But I wanted him to hear it, because I want to get back into discussing them building these fortified cities. And I want to thank brother Copper Indio, because he had dropped the link in the in the back chat. Hope some of y'all in the new and improved back chat that Dr. Gabrielle Union has established. But when he put that link in there about all the different names of what the Natchez on these different titles, and when he dropped that link, oh, and guess where it's from too? Guess who it's dealing with? The Texas State Historical Association. I said this years ago, and I'll keep saying it again, that Texas was the final frontier. That was the last stand as far as dealing with the Muskogee people. That was the last fortified area was Texas. Because after that, you start getting into Comanche territory, you start getting into those that are when you're going into the Apaches and all of them. So different group of people. We got along with some, fought with others, but those different group of people. But as far as Muskogee people and getting up and then going back up and dealing with those in the Carolinas and Virginia, because you'll start to see some people saying connection. Oh, I know we got even up to Ohio player roller coaster. That we talk about the Choctaw, he going up to Ohio. You start got those going up. They call them creeks and all different names. And you start getting up in the Georgia and going up into the Carolinas, which gets into Brother Comp Indios people. You'll see how we were interacting with each other and exchanging certain things. And when those that came on board that were coming in and gathering information and taking notes, said, wait a minute, this tribe get along with this tribe, this tribe get along with this tribe. So you'll start seeing, a great grandmother from South Carolina who married somebody from Alabama. And you're saying, well, wait a minute, how is this coming from? And you see how we were interacting with one another. And the more you interact with someone, you're intermingling, and you're saying, hey, we're two families becoming one now. We can't be at war with each other. So it was kind of like, how you gonna kill your own folk? It's like we're blood now. You
Yeah.
can't kill your own folk. So you
Right.
start to see this, and then when you allow other people to come in and start to manipulate, I don't know what Brother Turtle said here. He said, yes, that's correct. There sure was a time that we did not go to the doctor. We everything was home remedy. But you know how much castor oil I had, so much herbal tea I had, and Vicks vapor rub on my feet.
Yeah. That's a valuable point. Now, let me read this aloud, just for the folks watching, or anybody that might come back and see this later. The Old Town Doctor will also have detailed records. There was a time when we didn't go to hospital. We all had a community doctor. That's important, especially if you running into a brick wall as you do your genealogy. There are things like that because you got to remember, what did we do culturally? I mean, Brother James mentioned as well, and Brother Ohio Player mentioned the family Bible. We put those records there. Those are records that we may not have in vital records with the state or with the county. So sometimes you kind of got to go outside of normal channels to get the information you need to make that connection.
And that's what we have to do. We have to go outside the norm. Because we talk about that the old town doctor, that so much so, and I'll put it this way: he was passing in our town. He was a Melungeon that he brought my mother into the world. He brought all of my siblings into the world, and my oldest sibling is named after him. That's how deep it goes. My dad came home because we name each other after. It keeps going on down the line. I'm James, and it's a gazillion Jameses that we all know we related, especially being Choctaw. And my dad, story was told. My dad came home because he was serving. He was in Vietnam, and came home and found out my the oldest brother's name, oldest child's name. He's like, what? My firstborn. What are you doing? Naming him after the doctor because he just had that relationship, but he was a Melungeon, and the people in town, because he could not, he could maneuver certain ways because he was not only a doctor, a PhD doctor, he was also a doctor of dentistry. He was all of the above, but he was a Malunge, and nobody knew until when they found out. To this day, they have a little fountain. I mean, like a little like bird feeding fountain in the middle of downtown, and it just has his name on the plaque. As that's the part. No picture, no statue, nothing. But they found out later on in life that he was a Melungeon. But he was, they had already, the folk, because Caucasian people were coming to see him too. Everybody was going to see him in town, and they didn't know that he was. We knew he was passing. He was a Melungeon.
Yeah.
So I say it's those things that we don't pay attention to. That when you start going and finding out these things that you just won't necessarily find in a book per se, is when you start going around and you start finding people in the town and getting with these elders, and they start telling stories, and they'll say, "Oh, well, go see Joe Bob. He still live up there on the hill." Then you spend time with Joe Bob. Go bring Joe Bob something to eat. Get him a 2-piece and a hot pepper and some red drink, and sit out there on the porch and deal with those mosquitoes. Just spray some off on you and deal with those mosquitoes and sit out there and talk to old Joe Bob. Because then he gonna lead you to somebody. And that's the way we do it. And you start reestablishing those relationships, and you start to find out a little bit more about who you are when you're hearing that from someone, other people, and they're saying, "Man, I didn't know this and I didn't know that." So it's always somebody that's gonna sit up there and say, "Let me tell you about your daddy." And then when you start, you bracing yourself, you're like, "Oh man, what are they about to say?" That kind of deal.
I told a friend at work, like, "Hey man, go ask your peoples about, who you are and this and that." So he went and asked he was telling a random guy at work, like, "Yeah, I've been doing my genealogy and this and that." And whenever he said his last name to the guy next to him, he's like, "You don't know your family be holding the Catawba festivals over here in East Ohio?" He had no idea that his dad, his father was connected to the Catawba. But a random guy at work was able to tell him, "Man, you a Catawba. If you related to them, then you need to be over there at the family reunions and this and that. And they do them around this time." And he ended up getting in touch with the chief and everything. The chief was going to, go ahead and get him in there. But it was funny to watch that, in real time, somebody find out like, "Oh, I didn't know that about myself."
Exactly. And like I said, I always say it all the time. It's like no other feeling in the world. But I want to yield the mic to brother Turtle Gang, and I got to give him a proper introduction. I've been following this brother for a long time. At one point, I thought he was younger, and found out we peers. But the work that he's done, and going down into the Yucatan, and a lot of times people don't know this, but he was always doing work behind the scenes. So what I call, I don't even say his name, but Joe Jackson and all of them, when he started transitioning up there in Harlem from peeling and VHS tapes and DVDs to actually putting together forms and stuff, the recording. It was Brother Turtle Gang that was doing these recordings with all these brothers. Like I said, he got footage for days. Like I said, all I ask is that, man, I know, because from back in the day, and this was back in, man, Blog Talk Radio days, that he got some footage. He got some footage that if the brother if he release it to a Patreon group, I'm gonna be there. I'm telling you, like on Facebook, where they say you got a good certain, you give them all them stars and stuff, and you give the. I'm telling you, the footage that this brother has is worth it. And like he say, he Turtle Gang, still Turtle Gang, but I'm gonna give him this introduction, and I'm gonna yield the mic. He's still the same OG. Brother Turtle Gang, man, I appreciate you coming on board, man. I yield the mic to you, brother.
Thank you, brother. I appreciate you. It's humbling. I definitely appreciate your introduction. What I wanted to touch on was just speak a little bit more on the situation with the doctor. So, and like I said, real quick, because I got a call I got to get on. But the situation with the doctor was obviously we know there was a time where they wasn't burying people of color in the same cemeteries as white folks. Couldn't go to the doctor as well. So we all had our own, not only did we have our own medicine people in our immediate communities, but in town, you would have like that first black doctor. You know what I mean? So you got you got your medicine man in your immediate community, but in the town that many of the people who would have left the tribal communities, they would have moved into a town. Those people would have needed to have a doctor too, right? And that would have been a Western doctor. You know what I'm saying? For my community, the Parkers was our doctors. 2 generations of them. They was like the first black doctor in Monmouth County. But the relationship that we had with the hospitals was through the doctor. So the doctor had the relationship with the hospital. So if something happened that you had to go to the hospital, the doctor would have all your family records. The hospital wouldn't. So this is why I say you go to your because this is how it would happen. The church, you would have the church, and the church would have all the family documents. They would make a copy and they would bring it to the town doctor, which is probably the first black doctor in that area. So when people want to start looking up things, if you can attach yourself to that church, that was one of the first churches built in that community, which was transitioning out of the tribal community into like a colonial community, would have built a church. Also would have had a relationship with a doctor. So look up who was the first quote unquote African American or black doctor in that area. And those people are going to have records of all those communities that were people of color. You just got to trace that through the and then through that they probably would have brought them information to the local hospital. They would have had it. You know what I mean? So you might have information at hospitals that you're not even thinking to go access because of the processes that were in place in the 1800s. So that's all I really wanted to say.
Yes, sir. I appreciate it. You spot on. Like I say, because ours was, like I say, it was Dr. Glenn Mitchell was the doctor,
Mm-hmm.
but it was a clinic, which was actually his house.
Mm-hmm.
And he did, like I say, he was a Melungeon. He was passing, but the, all of his patients were our people, and everybody's like,
Mm-hmm.
oh, this white man, the people on the other side of town, well, he's not really one of us because he's serving, all those colors. It was that type of deal because he was
Mm-hmm.
passing. They didn't, but like I say, we knew. But
Mm-hmm.
it was called Mitchell's Clinic, but it was his house. It was a 2-story house, so he lived upstairs
Yep.
and he treated the patients downstairs. And it was
Yep.
still in downtown in the town. Like I said, where my folk are from, like
Mm-hmm.
I say, was still there. But that's what the record has because it was no hospital records because everyone was either born, at home with a
Mm-hmm.
midwife or they went to his clinic. So
Yep.
no, there was no hospital. He was it. So he had all those records, and then all his sons became doctors, and they had
Yep.
all our records. So they knew the family history. They knew like, okay, you know, you the second born, and you made all straight A's. They knew every member of every family because they were in that town. They knew
Yep.
it, and like I said, they went to church with us, and that's why it's like, wow, this that white man going to church with those colors. But
No.
like I said again, we knew nobody was going to let the cat out the bag that he
No. Now
that he was passing.
let me say this
Right.
before I go. So this is how you can reverse engineer their shit, and this is how this is for people whose tribes was written out the history, right? Y'all just basically your tribe was dissolved and y'all integrated into colonial society, right? So this is how you get back, right? So you got your town doctor who has all those records, right? He's more than likely going. There's going to be a first black doctor, first colored doctor in that community. That's his story. So what you do is once y'all establish that, you go to the town and you say, "Yo, this man was the first such and such. We need some plaques on these walls. We need him to be recognized." Right now, that man, like you work towards getting that man recognized because he's a pillar in the community, playing to all that. But what that also does now is it legitimizes his records. So now this man's being honored in the community by the white folks because he's the first black doctor. Now, what does his record say? Oh yeah, and in his records say all these families are part Indian families. Now all that's on the table. See what I'm saying? And you just be inching your way. You like, see what I'm saying? You backdooring them. You're using their own shit to write yourself back into history. You just gotta know how to do it. You know what I mean? And they gonna think that, okay, we giving them, like you're saying, oh, I want this building to be a monument in our town. And they think they just throwing you a little crumb. Oh yeah, get them niggas a building. Put a plaque on the wall. But what it really doing is these is like little breadcrumbs. And then once you keep moving and you're active in your community, now you got this doctor's place being a historical spot in the community. Now, whatever else, you keep moving, and all these things are now reestablishing y'all history. See what I'm saying? And one piggyback off the other. And they don't even realize what you're doing till they look up. And you got a bunch of monuments in your town that all point to the people being Indians. You know what I mean?
Piece by piece.
Yep, piece by piece. It just take time, and it take, like, you got to be real focused and have, like, you got to be creative. Because they can't write you out because your people help build these communities. So you got to stand on that. You see what I'm saying? And don't even be like, these Indians built these communities. Let them think they big up in Negroes. Then once they get the plaque up, you're like, oh yeah, and those is Indians. See what I'm saying? Like, you spook the sat by the door type shit. You gotta be slick with these people. You know what I mean? Because if you come at them saying this is what your agenda is, you know what I'm saying? Now they have the opportunity to counter it. You know what I mean? And I'm saying this, I've been through these things, like with people with my town. You know what I'm saying? So just a few things. Just a few things I just wanted to tell the people, for those people who, like, literally their tribe is not active or been written out. You know what I mean?
Yeah, this is great, especially when you're dealing with like historical societies and a lot of these small towns. They really protective, and you got to be subtle. Like you say, you got to be really subtle, and you kind of got to go back door with them, because if they know that you trying to establish who's who, and you talking about Indians, they'll definitely get out in front of you and try to block everything you're doing.
Yeah, because they want to be the oldest people in that community.
Exactly.
You know what I'm saying? But yeah, I just wanted to add that jewel though. But I got to get out of here, y'all. Definitely peace to the chat. I definitely check y'all out once I finish with my call. If y'all still live, I'll come back on over here. All right.
Yes, sir. I appreciate you, brother Turtle Gang,
right,
man. Like I say, he's always, man, dropping that knowledge, that wisdom, and that science, man. We appreciate you. And as my youngest daughter says, go to his channel, like and subscribe, like and subscribe.
Like and subscribe. Thank you. And everybody, peace and thank you for your time. Definitely, bro. Continue to have a great show, bro. All right?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. And I'll be checking in when you go live again. Like I said, we still back on. You got an open door, man. Always.
Okay, you as well, bro.
Appreciate you, sir.
Peace.
Yeah, it's always good when brethren dwell together in unity. Like I said, I wasn't expecting him to come on to the little old live that we have on here. I appreciate the brother dropping on. Like I say, for years, man, I've been watching that brother, following that brother and his work that he's done, and he's never try to take the glory for anybody, because he started out behind the camera. He wasn't in front of the camera. He was behind the camera. That people don't know. Like I say, I know because I was just the face in the crowd back in the day. And I'll show the photos and showing like, oh, what were you doing up in Harlem?
Yeah, you gotta give him this respect, because, like you said, when he first had his chance to step in front of the camera, he said what everybody's been saying. You know, he could have just went along to get along with everybody up in Harlem, but he definitely went against the grain and made sure he spoke for us. So you can never take it from.
Yeah, greatly appreciate that.
Yeah, and what's the thing with he and Chief Two Feathers, like I said, the thing is people that they bringing on board. And if you get a chance to, I'm gonna reach out to Brother Turtle Gang again to see if he can't get the do some combination bills with the Taino chief. Like I said, because that's touching on my better halves people, the Puerto Ricans. So Yeah, I'll tell you, he came with some jewels, and it was like right on time. Uh, that he was talking about the timekeepers, who were the time people, who these people were, and knowing what time it is, because it doesn't matter. Like I said, if you are there to catch a flight, a bus, or a train, and you show up, and they tell you it was 2:30 p.m. and you show up at 2:30 a.m. and you're like, yeah, but I was here and I was this, but you wasn't on time. You gotta know the time. When you figure out what time it is, that's when things will really start to sink. When you find out who you are and where you belong, who you belong to, and then you know what time it is. Oh, I wasn't going to know brother Mike Easton, former quarterback of the New England Patriots. he's like, he's like, oh man, he's like, yeah, you know, he said, when we mad at that robbery, you already know how it is. Yeah, I know how it is. You mad because you getting robbed. You know how it happened. You know how it did. But Brother Turtle Gang, when he mentioned about going to these doctors and finding out who's who, like I said, yeah, that once they got their plaque up, and you know they're gonna do something, the mayor's gonna be there and make some kind of declaration or something. And when they said, well, this person made it all possible. And when they call you or some of your folk up there, he said, that's when you drop that bomb. Yeah, these were Indians already establishing and already being built. That these places that we don't realize, like, yo, because even the area where my people ended up settling again after we left Hall Creek, the area was called Old Settlers. The original settlers of that particular of what they call now it's Collin County, but then it was all part of Fannin County, and they split it up into areas, the middle of the most. So, in that whole area there, it was called Old Settlers. And guess what? It was our people there. And I got the news clippings and showing and how the certain areas of town would name, how they got they sub, because they was separate part of the town. We had our own town. And how people would come in and burn down the buildings because they didn't have the fire hydrants to put out the fire. So I had a place where the fire department would come in, set the fires to these houses and establishments, these stores in the communities, and then pull back up, and they would come in civilian clothes, pull up in the truck and say, oh, we don't have a water main to hook up to our hose to let put the fire out. And they would just sit there and watch it burn. Nothing has changed. So go back to what Brother Copper was saying about them burning the Tupi lived. The area down there, but it's nothing has changed. If you burn and you scorch the land, then you got to reestablish somewhere else. So now this causes conflict because you got a whole group of people. That's why you keep reading these history books. Oh, and it's such and such, and they all of a sudden they disappeared. Nah, they relocated. So when you hear about a people, especially if it's your people, leaving a particular area, start doing researches on area where other conflicts started because a large group of people migrated into another area. That's where you start to find, like, wait a minute. Start doing some more research, like, oh, wait a minute. And this town was named this where my people were originally from. And then I see the same name, 3 states over. Now I would consider 3 states over. Those are your people reestablishing themselves.
Right.
That's all they do. And so all throughout, you'll see, especially with the Natchez, you'll see all kind of derivatives of the Natchez name. Like I said, in East Texas, we got Nacogdoches. We got all these other, but when you look at Nacogdoches, if you would have ever to look up Nacogdoches, you say, that's not how you would say that word, the way it's spelled. But you got all these different establishments, all these different forts. But I wanted to go back to something that Brother Copy said. He could jump on here because he sent the link and it was right on time. It's right up my alley. Because this is a group with a lot of information. A lot of my folk are in these books that they've actually digitized now and put it online. But it's the Texas State Historical Association. And this was the original Fort Riley, not the Fort Riley that was in Kansas. The original Fort Riley was in Texas, and they changed the name to Fort Clark. But he gave a list of names and listed all the derivatives had the link to all derivatives of the names, what you see, Nacogdoches. You didn't think, oh, these, I didn't think that was Nacogdoches. Because when they establish in that area, they're finding the same type of structures that the Spanish
Also,
admitted. Go
Fort
ahead, brother.
Rosalie. Also look up Fort Rosalie and Natchez also had, they helped build that. The other one is it the Castillo de San Marcos? There was, but yeah, basically you'll notice like you said, it looked like uh what is San Antonio? What's the fort down there in San Antonio? The Alamo. You'll see that same gray concrete built out of like what are they saying? It's a shell mound. It's oysters gathered shell mounds, and they chipped away at it. They built 19. The walls are 19 feet thick by 12 feet, and they fired cannons at it for 50 days and could not get in. That's a lot
Yes,
of,
sir.
yeah, that's 50 days worth of cannon fire. Can you imagine shooting at your house for 50?
And you
That's
just
not,
ride it out and
yeah,
let them run out of ammo. You just ride. All you doing is just riding it out because they can't come in. The only way they can come in is if you let them in. So they just keep blasting. That's what I say. You see all these writers. They say, oh, we fired cannons full blast. Like I say, 50 days of cannon fire and still nothing. Which is why you even see one of the Oli heads or Olmec heads. I'll use modern terminology for someone that may come on and be like, who is he talking about? You see the one Olmec heads that have all those
yeah,
divots in it.
yeah. They
That's
shot
because all
you
those
with the
yeah, they
French
kept
did.
and he put the divots in it, but guess what? It didn't break the structure of the Olmec head.
Right.
It's it's still there. They can't and so like I say, these are people that built these structures. Again, why would if there were another group of people, right? Or let's just say an alien race of people, why would you build structures? Why would you build and you'll find these stone structures, like I said, the people keep leaving out Easter Island. Why would you build structures to lift up or glorify a group of people or a group of creatures that are not even affiliated with you? Doesn't make sense.
You know.
You're going to have people. I'll give you the prime example. If we go to Korea right now and we go to a church over there in Korea, Jesus the Christos, Jesus, what he called Jesus the Christ, is going to look Korean.
Yeah.
He's not going. He's not going to look. He's not going to look like Ben Affleck. He's going to look Korean. So why? Everywhere that you go, you start finding these same structures. And I go back again, and I don't ever want to be on their program, but one of these days they're gonna make me just actually like call in to Joe Jackson and tell him because everything what he's trying to do and trying to discredit certain people and all the rest of that stuff. Because I know I don't want to take money out of anybody's pocket, but it still gets back to you've got to break down to me the walls of Bonaparte. So anybody that keeps saying, "Oh no, it was brought over here on slave ships later on," somebody's gonna have to. I'm just a simpleton, so you got to break it down to me and explain to me why the people that still look like people in my family, and I know that I'm a descendant of them because they are still walking around with and like I say, I'll keep it in everyday terms, and I'll start breaking this down in back chat some. But in everyday terms, their animal spirit. I'm still Rabbit Clan, so I can look on up there on the walls of Bonaparte. I can look at the vases and the bowls and the plates, and I'm saying, wait a minute, I'm seeing the symbol And I'm seeing these folk that look like folk that are alive today that are still in my family. So somebody's going to explain that to me. So why would a people, first of all, if they were saying that this was the mother culture, you go down there, they talk about this is the mother culture, and they saying where you came from, how you came back, and they telling you these are the people that built this and that, and then you seeing it in stone, you seeing it on the wall. If they were the ones trying to take credit, if they were actually the people that are in the land now, the majority of the people, still some of us that are in these lands, but the majority of the people that are there now, if their ancestors did it, not saying that they're not related to us, that's another subject for another time. But why wouldn't it have people that look like them on the walls? Why would it not have the the Tata, or the what they call the flat nose people? Why are they on these walls? Why are they chiseled in stone? It makes absolutely no sense. It wouldn't happen that way. Like I said, in dealing with the mother culture, and then we're gonna get into, oh man, I know 2 hours in, man, I apologize. We're gonna get into how these American Indians, again, as we know, they went into Spain, and then they went down into what we know as Angola. So getting all into West Africa to help build these forts that folk want to tell you, oh no, well this is the port of no return. Well, why are the cannons facing inward? Why are the cannons not facing inward? Why are
Exactly.
they facing out to sea? Because when you tell me, right, because if you kidnap my wife, right, and you trying to get her on the ship, or I would think if somebody kidnapped me, because majority of them that were coming over here were men, were males, a lot of them children.
Yeah, Morisco
If
jail.
so, why wouldn't you come after me? You see what I'm saying? If I'm the Portuguese, or the Spaniard, and I've kidnapped your children, why wouldn't you come after me? So if you're coming after me and all the cannons are faced out to sea, you better be able to come in there and come get me. You see what I'm saying? It doesn't make sense.
And
So
like
you
It
got people
doesn't.
going.
like you said, if it's called the white man's death, we all getting sick, dying. We made it all up with the quinine yet. So we got to do business with somebody, and they got to bring them. You know, this story don't make sense, man.
It makes
And then,
absolutely. Go ahead, sir. I'm sorry.
oh no, I was just gonna say to what you were talking about with these people's problems to be able to build. You got to ask yourself, why were they bringing these people from Brazil and other places to that place, to Angola, to what's now Ghana, to Nigeria? Well, what's now Nigeria? These places weren't called this back then. But why did they take them people there? They took them there to help them build, like you say, because these were master builders. And I shared something with Brother James and with Miss Gavin and a few others the other day. It was a book on Oriental Freemasonry, and it attributes the creation of the tenets and the laws of Freemasonry to America, to the land of the constellation of the eagle. These were the master builders. These people that Brother James is talking about, the Natchez, the pyramid and mound builders. These were master builders. When they tell you that these people were master builders, the Freemasons, or at least the people that are credited with the creation of the craft of Freemasonry, how you build things, that's who they're talking about. They were people that were here. When you look at Egypt, and some people have heard me say this till I'm blue in the face, and I apologize if you heard me say this before. Go look at Egypt. Now everybody attributes Freemasonry, or at least that science, with Egypt, with Kemet, right? But look at those heads. Look at those animal heads. And you look at Heru. Heru is the American falcon. When you look at the feather pattern on Heru's face, The only falcon that has that same pattern is the American falcon. When you look at Anpu is the Sholo Squinkly, a hairless dog from Mexico. This is not by accident. This is by design. So those ideas, those concepts of how you build things in a masterful way come from here. Now it makes a little more sense why we get taken over there to these other places, to West Africa and other places, and you have all of these fortifications built up. What do they call the pyramid of Kukulkan? They call it El Castillo, a castle. Who were building these castles? Who were building these fortifications? Sound like they were having us go and work and do project work to build and construction in these other places around the world.
Like James said, they had a relationship before whatever catastrophe that happened with the water. You know, the water kind of separated whatever family members was over there doing whatever trading and business. And whenever they lost their little grips on whatever they had going on over there, they brought everybody with them. They brought everybody home. they finally could get back, and they you know, you always see them writing all these romances about the land of the Southern Cross, the land, like you said, of the eagle or the swan. It's always about the cross in the sky, or where X marks the spot. And that's where, once you find out, that's why it's all on all the flags. If you look at most of the flags that are in this hemisphere, or who else you want to say, your Polynesians, they all talk about the cross. They all talk about the land of the cross. Follow the cross in the sky, and it'll take you to paradise. And that's why they, you know, supposedly they came looking for the Fountain of Youth here, Prester John here, you know, after they had ransacked that whole other part of the world of Africa looking for these places. They realized that, you know, and that the Moors finally had to go ahead and give it up. That, you know, it's over there. You know, that's where we've been getting this tobacco and this cocaine and this chocolate and all these delicacies and stuff they wasn't sharing with the rest of the world, where they was getting it from. Because, you know, like you said, that was the Masonic secret. They was what they was all holding on to.
Yes, sir. And those are places that we need to keep going. And when we start finding out, and that cross, it's just the four corners, the four people coming together. Because if you take you know, I always say about, oh, they're coming from the four corners of the earth. So if you take the four corners of the earth, if everybody's in their corner, it's like a boxing match. Everybody goes to their separate corners right before the fight starts, and then you come together in the middle of the ring. Well, if you have two other groups and two other corners, and they all coming together, it's going to form a cross. It's just those cardinal points. What are those group of people when they're talking about the four that are coming across the planet? And I said this in the back chat, and this is gonna get me in trouble, and I'm ready. See, I'm gonna talk about Ricos, Indios. That's what I'm talking about. When you start talking about building, and see, this is the things we go back to when they talk about the carpenters and the masonry, the Freemasonry, who actually were these masons.
Yeah,
then
Natchez bricks, you know, like they built this, you know, if you see the houses working today, they made those, you know, they were for bricks. Our grandfathers were I know my granddad's paid really big businesses, and they needed masons.
And when he made it, it was only that he could do it. They had to go, everybody. See, that's the deal. The true builders, the master builders, everybody in town, they knew something. Because I had a uncle that was that way. He started out, he had a 1-bedroom shack. When I mean 1 bedroom, the kitchen, the bathroom, the living room, the bedroom, it was one room. And he turned that into a 6-bedroom house that is still standing today. Then he turned around and did the same thing on another tract of land that he went and bought. And he dropped out of high school at 14 and made a killing building. So it's in us to do that, and people don't. Well, like I say again, when we walking around with amnesia because we've been bopped in the head so many times, and we looking for answers in all the wrong places and going to all the right people, to all the wrong people, and want to be affiliated with certain groups that want to act like they gang banging, but still don't tell you who you are when trying to find out who you are. That's all they got back to of dealing with. Some people got the issues with Black Panther, and that's fine. Me, I don't. But it goes back again. Spoiler alert. Still go back to finding out who you are. But you know, they always kept asking. Was it the first one? They asked like, "Who are you?" And they say their name and they Wakandan language, and then they do their lip, and you see how it was glowing, and they're like, "Oh, this is who I am." At the end of the new one, you find out when they ask like, "Who you are?" I said, "Yeah, that's my Haitian name, my IT name. But this is who I am. I'm blah 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 blah." At the end, I was like, get your tissues ready if you hadn't seen it already. But people, when you know who you are, when you know who you are, that's all I'm gonna say. When you know who you are, things start to make sense. The sky seems a little brighter. You have a little pep in your step when you find out who you are. But he talked about, go back to what the cop said about these builders, and we'll go back again. And people keep trying to ignore it. That when the Mandi said, the people that were there when they were talking to him, is we came from the land of red corn. Corn, maize, guate, only grows in the Americas. It initiated in the Americas. Why is it that these people were saying that they had corn there in West Africa, the Mandi people, and they came from the land of the red corn? And then you get back, okay, now you got agriculture. So now we're going to get into the language, because again, in order to be a culture or civilization, you got these 5 things you got to have. So no one is still, they come up with all these different myths to explain why my Cherokee people that are in the house, Tennessee, Arkansas, Kentucky, all that area, getting up in the southern part of Ohio, southern part of Illinois, southern part of Michigan, all in that area. So my Cherokee people should know that when you're dealing with Vine, that's your language. So how in the world are people in West Africa speaking Vai, and then they try to say one man taught everybody? Man, come on, son.
Yeah, his name.
You don't taught a 250,000 people Vai. One person. Come on, son. Get out of here with that. Come on, son. And then they telling you in the same area of Sierra Leone. Come on, son. You better get out of here with that. And we know what happened with the American Colonization Society. Come on, son. I'm not even going. We can't do this anymore. We can't play these games anymore. If you believe one person taught 250,000 people.
Yeah, Curtis Allen.
Yeah, one person. Curtis Allen. Come on, son. You talking about Curtis Allen? You talking about Marcus Allen? Who are you talking about here? You talking about David Allen Greer? Who are we talking about? One person? Come on, son. One person taught 250,000 people a language. Did he have Babel on iPod? Come on, son. Did he have a big speaker that he was just playing all the time?
Then
so everybody
they had to kick him up out of there because he started slavery.
Thank you. They ran him up out of town. Come on, son. But he done taught all these people this language, and they still speaking it today. And they talk about, oh, well, it lines up with these people and the native language that are here. But then you're looking at the dialect, you're looking at the accent on the word. It's all the same.
Yeah, they said even
somebody that could
house, you got Cherokee written on his house, you know, and the people like they said they go over and kids, they like Cherokee.
And like I say, it's like who was that? Was that Aretha Franklin was saying who's zooming who? I want to know who's zooming who. I need to know. I really want to know who's zooming who. Who are you trying to fool? When you're taking the people over there to build these fortified cities because they knew, hey, we just can't go over there and set up shop because we're gonna get wrecked. And remember that it wasn't until Africa started getting carved up later on. This is way later on. This is where you start getting into the mid 1800s, late 1800s is when Europeans started carving up Africa. They wasn't over there like that. And then we're still leaving out malaria. Come on, son.
White man's death.
So how you going to all these different places, which is why, again, a century after that, you start getting into what was going on in the Philippines. Why were they sending our troops that look like us, still Buffalo soldiers? We know Buffalo soldiers were the Seminole, which gets back to kissing boots, still gets back to who we are. Semi. They sending them over to the Philippines. They sent them down during the Spanish-American War. Why were they sending all the places? It was our fathers, because like I said, my father fought in Vietnam. My great uncle fought in Korea. Why are we going to all these different, going in the jungles of Vietnam? Whole lot of us was sent over there.
3 tours. Yo, you love it.
Because they couldn't deal with that, what they call that bad air. So that same air they're finding in South America, they're finding it in the Gulf states that we know today, the Southeast states today. They're finding it in Virginia and Carolinas. It was that bad air that they couldn't breathe. So how they coming over here? That's why I just try to keep things simple for folks to make you think. If you can't breathe, if anybody's seen that, most of that movie with Arnold Schwarzenegger when they were establishing that colony on Mars, and they go out there and they couldn't breathe the air.
Oh yeah, Total Recall.
Total Recall. Remember how their eyes were all bugging out and all the rest of it? They couldn't breathe. Come on, son. When they telling you they couldn't breathe, so that lets you know the people that were coming over here that they were using to come over here were people that were used to these tropical and sub equator people. Again, they may fall under Portuguese, they may fall under Spanish, they may fall under Dutch, but there were people that looked like us. All skinned folk ain't kinfolk. And again, I'm waiting. He said, people check out the book, Emma Christopher, the British lost convicts in Africa, and the sweet over there as they try to make it seem. Exactly. They were sending folk over here, sending folk over there that didn't want to act right. Same way the British were sending people to Australia, the same way the other folks were sending they convicts over here. That's all it was. Is we can't hold y'all anymore. There's too many criminals going on because when you got folks starving to death, I tell people this all the time, and this may get me in trouble. So I know that Leor Cohen is listening to this because he's got stock in YouTube. If it gets to a point where I can't feed my family, it's something between your belly button and your backbone that's going to make you do things that you never thought you would do. Man. So when you start checking these places where people are literally starving to death, like they were all over Europe and just dropping dead because of disease and filth, then you're going to start running up on the king's palace. You're going to start running up in the queen's chambers, stealing her crown and pearl necklaces and stuff. You're going to start doing some things that you thought you would never do. So people say, I wouldn't, because my pride and my integrity. No, you wouldn't. So they like, man, there's too many of them starving, but we want to keep our royal status. So we'll build them this pipe dream of, oh, there's a new land and you can start afresh and you can do these things. And then you had those that were trying to do the same thing and want to establish themselves in West Africa. And some of them were getting clapped back twice. Well, oh, we got to get some people that's going to help us. So they were taking folk over there because folk were saying, hey, we tired of battling because you got the British battling the French. Oh, we got to get into that too at another time because it's gonna still get into these Natchez. And when the British were battling with the French and they're getting into the French Indian Wars and how those British were kicking those French out of that part of Canada, which is why you got BC, you got the British Columbia, and you got French Canada, Quebec, and how they were kicking French out, and how they ended up in New Orleans down there in Brother Carey Bay's territory. Right, you got them raging Cajuns now.
The Cajuns.
How they ended up coming down, and they shipped them down to Mississippi and had them come on down to New Orleans and set up shop there. So now you got this hodgepodge of different people. We gotta start breaking it down. Now remember, again, the same proxy, because on one side you had the French, which you might as well say, for the most part, especially in my region, was Choctaw, and then you had the British that were Chickasaw. So they're saying, oh, the British and the French were fighting for this information. Like I said, then you get up into the Ohio Valley, as well, Ohio player, see some of his folk, and you start seeing these same folk, and then you got the Algonquian language people coming from the East Coast that are saying the same thing. Like, well, shoot, we can just go fight everybody. So all of us, we all fighting each other because you got them representing the Dutch, you got us representing the French, you got the Chickasaw representing the British. So all that's why you see all these different places, territories changing hands over and over, swapping back and forth, swapping back and forth. Then here come the Spanish from the South, which are your, like I say, your Mayans that stay down there, your Quiche, all the different language people. So you got them thinking like, oh, we can get our independent freedom. All this is going on simultaneously. So I'm still trying to figure out how these ships with all these manifests with 500 slaves in the belly of the ship, laying in a plank position. What are you feeding them? And what are they drinking? Because again, that's not a smart business move. If you're saying, I'm going to put a ship full of 300 people, and then only 10 are going to survive. Yeah. Come on, son.
And I ain't Come got no record for you when I get them there. I'm drop some money, pull up on you with the rest, and just hand them to you. I was so much it could go on. And then I was reading this about another thing about the Natchez and them, the ones are fort builders. It says commonly and effectively used skilled workmen and masons were recruited in Cuba. These men gathered a force of workers from Cuban convicts as well as nearby the Timucua, the Guawe, the Appalachians, and the Natchez to build the fort on October 7th, 1672.
Wait, say those names slowly. Say that. Oh, but no sellout. I hope you are not crossing that bridge going into DC. If you are, you need to pull over, put your flashes on, and Brother Ohio player, read that again slowly.
So you got these men gathered the forces and workmen from the Cuban convicts as well as nearby Timucuans, Guale, the Appalachian Indians, and the Natchez on October 1672.
And they were doing what in 1672? They were doing what?
It was already building the fortresses for the British and everybody else, the wood, and then they used coquina and a kind of stone that would be found near the coast of the Anastasia Island. The limestone was formed over thousands of years from the shells of tiny coquina clams cemented together throughout time. It is a natural and in nature into a solid and soft stone.
Oh snap! You know they gonna come. Somebody gonna come out of woodwork, just like old chick on Friday. You ain't got to lie, Craig. You ain't got to lie. All I'm gonna do is, brother, I'm gonna take that little snippet that you read. Why I want you to read it twice, and then I'm gonna put it. You like you could do the YouTube shorts. I'm gonna just loop it every couple of days. I'm gonna loop it.
Because you got your Wale, they was written out of history. All three of these tribes are written out of history right now, and the Natchez. All four of them have been enslaved and written out of history all over this moment. And this was in 1672. So in 1619, you just got your first couple of Africans, and that they considered in the country, the Anthony Johnsons or whatever. And we're not even 60 years, not even 60 years later.
Exactly. And to further that, you got the so-called modern African American. What do they talk about when they talk about the past? They talk about, well, we built this country. Well, why did they choose you to build the country? Why is it that people come from Africa, different parts of Africa now, they're not expected to come here and build nothing? Why is it that? Exactly. They're going to be doctors. They're going to be surgeons. They're going to be lawyers. They're going to be this, that, and the other. They go into these highly trained, intricate things, right? They going into higher profile jobs. They're not building nothing. Why did they pick you to build things? Why did they pick you to build this place? All the splendor that we have from Washington D.C. all the way out there to California. Why did and Brother James mentioned this the last time with what was the place called Kia. You look at all of these massive earthworks. You look at all of these buildings. You look at all these fortifications. Why were we chosen? Our people chosen to build these things, and nobody else. Nobody else seemed to be able to figure out how to do it. Even now, people that take credit for building this stuff don't know how to do it, and yet we still complaining that we build everybody else's stuff, and we have no benefit from it. See, this starts to make sense when you break all of this down.
Yeah.
Why we got sent all over the world to build other people's stuff up. And then we end up owning no land of our own. We end up owning none of these things that we built for everybody else. We just give them to everybody else. There's a reason for that. There's a reason that they keep telling us, you built all of this stuff, but we gonna benefit from it. You get yours some other time or when you get to heaven. We'll take that. Thank you. And there was a line from, and I know I quote a lot of movies. There was a line from that Candyman sequel that came out a couple years ago, and one of the most relevant quotes from that script was, "They like what we make, but they don't like us. So they'll move us somewhere, have us build everything up, and once we done, they done with us."
Yeah, and they said that we didn't look at it like we own the land. You know what I mean? We never had the idea of ownership like that. So it was the easy plan for them. They'll help build me a house. They'll do whatever I ask them. Just out of being friendly. And then they turn around and you realize you didn't made them something so great that and now they taking all the ownership for it, and you didn't mess. Now they done turned it into a municipal building, and now they changed the whole way your town is ran. So basically, like you said, you participate in your downfall.
Absolutely, and that's what this is about. You have to see, and when we look back at some of our leaders and how they refer to some of the invaders as the devil, like, we get that it's a combative, it's an unpleasant epithet to use with these people. Well, think about how the devil or Satan or whatever have you, Hasatan, whatever you want to call him, works. He doesn't make you do anything. He just whispers in your ear and suggests that you do things. So you're the one in the end that built up somebody else's stuff, and they don't have any negative karma on them because you did it and gave it away. Think about how we get played, how our people get played time and time and time again. Building up everybody else's stuff, fighting everybody else's movement, but we get nothing for ourselves. And like Brother James said, this has to stop with us. We got to stop and say, hey, wait a minute, we can't keep doing this. We can't keep playing along with this game because we're getting erased from everything. Anything that's seen as positive and productive, we're getting erased from. All we have is entertainment and destruction. That's why they refer to our people as thugs. Our young men, they refer to them as thugs. Thug comes from the Thuggee cult. The Thuggee cult were adherents to Kali. Kali is one of the goddesses of destruction. So when they calling our people thugs, they're saying they don't want to do anything but destroy and steal and burn things. Again, they make you a monster while you're building everything up for them. And I got to get ready to run, but I want to make sure that I put this here because this goes along with the theme of this video. If you go back and look at a lot of early photographs when they started, they had started taking photographs of different landmarks. You'll find there's all of these very large, almost larger than life, and exquisitely built buildings that were all covered in mud. And there weren't a whole lot of people around when I wish I had some copies to put on the screen. When I get a chance, I'll do that. But you would have these magnificent buildings that had windows, that had glass, that had what you would consider to be modern amenities. But they were stuck on the mud, and then you're talking like the 1850s, 1860s. How is this? Who built this stuff? What was going on here? Why was all of this stuff buried in mud? These massive buildings. Now, a lot of this stuff ended up getting cleared out, ended up getting rehabilitated, and but and some of these buildings got something. Another thing to think about is some of our buildings got built on top of, or got bricked over. So you thinking it's a new building when in reality we built this a long, long, long time ago for anybody even showed up here. So that's the thing. When you talk about master builders, when you talk about the people that built this place, that built all of the things, these massive cities that we have now, they're built on top of our villages. They're built on top of our trading centers and places of worship. And a lot of this stuff was buried. I talked to a lot of people that, from other places. Again, I work with a lot of international folks. And they talk about the cultures of their countries. And, I respect all of them because they all have great, things they've added to society or contributed to society. And whenever it comes back to America, I say, well, we have a great culture. We have a great history, but it was buried. It wasn't just the people that are buried here. Our civilization was buried here. It's underwater in some of these makeshift man-made lakes. Go ahead, brother.
Yeah, if y'all could check out on James Flame's channel, he has a interview with Chief Red Cloud. I think it's Chief Red Cloud, and they talk about how the Kusa have a pyramid that's buried underneath water, or like how when they got here, I can't remember what pyramid it was in Mexico. It was buried in mud. They didn't even know it had the pyramid in it. They had to dig the dirt off of it to find out that it was a pyramid.
Absolutely. When you watch the Black Panther, take the African part out of it, because they made up Wakanda and they made it a fictional African place. But what did Ulysses Klaue say in the first film? He said, "We were looking for El Dorado, and we didn't find it in America. We found it in Africa." Switch that around.
Yeah.
Because when you go back to that first film, they're showing you the meteors that hit the Yucatan. They're showing you who you are. They're showing you the Uli Macaque, the people, the rubber people who started the ball games. They're showing you the cenotes that these pyramids are built on top of. They're showing you all of that. They're just giving you an African veneer So it goes along with their narrative. But
You
they're
don't
talking
want
about you.
a million pissed off Pan Africans on the internet yelling at
And so you get to
over
the
a
second film, and who are they going up against? Kukul Khan. They even got, and Brother James and I were talking about this. The guy, Tenoch Huerta that was playing Namor, right?
yeah.
He's from the area he's from. The patron god there is Kukul Khan. That wasn't by accident. That was deliberate. So what are they showing you when you see Namor and you see him in front of those same murals like Brother James was talking about? That's us on those murals.
Yeah, most
Those
definitely.
people with dreadlocks, those people with the hats and the coverings that were covering the hat. That's us. That's
Yeah,
our people.
just look up Cuckoo Khan and them codexes and see who you find. It's gonna
Exactly.
look like blackface. It's gonna
You talking about Extua with the
yeah,
droopy lip?
Black Merchant. Yeah, the one who
Yeah.
traveled around selling chocolate and jade and doing all his ekahua. I think
Traveling around the world with all the candies for the boys and girls, just like Saint Nick, right? We get
call
into
him
that another time. I know.
This pine cone incense
yeah,
from the Americas. They better recognize.
Yep.
keep the mosquitoes off. I think that was your first off was burning pine cone.
All of this stuff points back here. The further we go, and all of these things that we look at that's enriched the world, that is part of humanity that we couldn't get rid of, points back here, all of it. But they're telling you who you are. And if you pay, if you stop and pay attention, you can see it.
That's it. They keep us so much that we don't take the time to actually slow down and see all the signs. And when you mentioned about Cuckoo Khan, I'm gonna, like I say, I'm gonna put a video up here shortly. Just it's not gonna be long at all. Just of a clip that's gonna tell you what the writing actually is when Cuckoo Khan, when he was painting on the wall, the things that he's saying, and he's saying this, he's telling our story. We just not paying attention, like, oh yeah, well, I don't understand, and that's him, and I'm mad. And I'm like, no, he's actually from, like you said, the actors from that area where we talked about before, and then even more so, keep telling you who we are. There's no way in the world, because even getting back to folk get offended, and it's different than uh, uh, um what was doing over here with blackface. But folk in up there in Sweden, they still do the blackface, dealing with the black merchant that wasn't from that land, that's coming in. You can't. When you think about the Swiss, here's what you're gonna think of. There are three things you're gonna think of. You're gonna think of the Swiss Guard dealing with the Vatican. You're gonna deal with Swiss banks.
Yeah.
And then you're gonna talk about Swiss Miss Coco. Well, shoot, I don't know where I go from. And we got to do another bill too. When we start dealing with buildings again, structures is going when we branch off. Start talking about these long houses. Come on, son. There's no way to sit up here and deny when you look at these long houses. When you go to these places now, now they rebuilt them, but those long houses, I know from being in the military, were your old barracks. They were just long all the way down, and we're gonna find out who they got that from. Who the Vikings came down, who we ran out of the Americas because they came down here and started acting crazy, and we put them back on their ship and set them on their little merry little way. And how they started building their over there, but then they forgot to build, the the stack houses to get the smoke out, and they smoking themselves out like beef jerky. But it was own houses were here first, building here first. But I'm gonna take that clip. I'm gonna take that clip that brother Ohio player roller coaster of love. What? And I'm just gonna keep looping it for those that missed it. They're telling you these are the people that they're getting to build these fortified places because they realize fortified places were there. I'm gonna end on this nugget because I know Brother Copper gotta go, and I'm gonna let y'all two brethren get the last word. But I know some people don't subscribe to them for whatever reasons. But they tell you how did these Latter-day Saints, aka these Mormons, when they got kicked out of their area from where they were in the Northeast and got kicked out to go west on the other side of the Mississippi, and they found refuge in a fortified building that was already built that other people didn't know about. Who built it? Y'all need to stay tuned. With that, I'm gonna let Brother Copper and Brother Ohio play up. And I appreciate Brother Turtle Gang coming on like it's the same OG. And Sister Gabrielle Union, you got the grits ready for us in the back chat. I appreciate her. I appreciate everybody listening, coming on. I appreciate everyone, like I said, that's been coming on and listening. Even those that didn't comment in the chat, I got love for you too. I even have love for my frenemies. So I want to give y'all the last word, and then we're gonna end it. And we're gonna do this again. Like I said, we're gonna keep doing it more regularly. But man, I appreciate y'all coming on board and dropping those tasty nuggets, them golden nuggets. I appreciate y'all. I'm gonna yield the mic, and I'm gonna turn over to Brother Ohio player, and then Brother Cop Indio, you'll get the last word, and then we're gonna be out.
I just wanted to say thank y'all for having me up here, man. It's been an honor, chopping it up with y'all. Peace to Turtle Gang in the chat. It's always real. It's always good to be back around the cat family. Don't nobody do it like us. But it's I just wanted to say thank you, and I love y'all. Y'all be safe out there.
Well, I greatly appreciate it, and I appreciate the opportunity to get on the platform and talk and trade notes and catch up like we used to. And I am humbled that I was able to be a part of this, especially with the Turtle Gang coming on. I've been a follower of his work for a long time, and I greatly appreciate all of his wisdom. I appreciate your wisdom, Brother James and Brother Ohio player. This level of understanding and wisdom is unmatched in spaces like this, and it is a treat and it is an honor to be able to talk to people who understand the truth and can speak about the truth freely. I'm gonna leave with this. I'm gonna be short and sweet. I'm gonna leave with this. There are people in my family, elders. My grandfather was a Freemason, and my grandmother from on my father's side, different family, but she was in the Order of the Eastern Star. And I learned about this after they were long past, but they also knew who we are. And I found out about that long after they passed from aunts and uncles that talked to them. They knew, they understood, and they understood why the craft, not so much the institution of Freemasonry, but the idea of being a builder, the idea of understanding how to build things, whether it's relationships, whether it's businesses, whether it's buildings. They understood this. And this is going to be a large part of where we go forward as we go deeper and deeper into who we are, because this is a part of us. Agriculture is our culture. I've heard me say that before. But also building things, building families, building relationships, building institutions is part of our culture as well. So I hope you all have found something constructive and useful in this dialogue. I appreciate you, Brother James, for letting me come on here and talk. And I got a whole bunch of pictures I would like to show everybody when we do this again and we start talking about the long houses, like you say, because I've taken a really big interest in architecture and design and engineering, and there's a lot that we have contributed and still contribute to society. So I'm looking forward to that conversation. Thank you all.
I appreciate you, brother. And once again, can't leave you out. Brother No Sellout, who's somewhere driving like speed racing, probably going up 85 or 95. And brother Kerry Bay, I hope you still there, brother. Like I said, got love for y'all. I appreciate everyone that was listening. And we'll do this again very soon, possibly tomorrow. So again, take care of yourself and each other. We out.
Peace, y'all.